After my father didn't come back from his last mission, the organization called me in for several talks. There are two main points. First, whether my father is dead, alive, or captured is impossible to determine, so the final outcome remains uncertain. Second, as the hero of this operation, Lu Xingzhou will be awarded the highest SWAT honor in Hong Kong City, if he remains engaged to me. It probably won't look good for him. Between the lines, he was persuading me to break off the engagement with him. Yes, I'm supposed to be the one to break off the engagement with him. In my past life, I flatly refused and lashed out at them, accusing them of burning the bridge after crossing it and being ungrateful. I insisted that my father was the real commander of this operation, and it was his relentless efforts day after day that ultimately took down their stronghold. But as the overall commander, he disappeared midway through. If it weren't for Comrade Lu, this operation would have been a complete disaster. Not only would the arrest have failed, but countless brothers would have been in grave danger. What if my dad was captured by those drug dealers? Instead of rushing to save him, you're coming after me. In my past life, I just couldn't understand it, no matter how hard I tried. On one hand, I was worried about my father. On the other, I kept begging Lu Xingzhou to tell the organization that our love was real, that we shouldn't be torn apart because of this. In the end, I insisted so strongly that we still got married, but in the 30 years of our marriage, I was never able to get close to him the way I did as a child. He was always cold and distant toward me. We had no children, and there was hardly any life between us. After the first few years, he rarely came home to spend the night, and even when he did, he would just wash up and leave. It wasn't until I was 55, diagnosed with liver cancer and going to the hospital alone, that I saw Lu Xingzhou tenderly caring for a woman, with a young man who looked just like him in his youth by her side. Then I finally understood why. It turned out that he had been living a double life all along, with his heart and home belonging to another woman. They even have children of their own. I'm the only one clinging desperately to this tomb-like marriage of ours. I collapsed right there on the cold cement floor of the hospital. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 30 years ago when the organization said to me, Lu Yu, we hope you'll think this through carefully. Given your family's current situation, it's really not suitable for you to be with a model SWAT officer like Lu Xingzhou. We hope you'll prioritize the bigger picture. I was stunned for a moment, then nodded decisively. Fine, I agree to call off the engagement, but I have one condition. I need to personally review all the files from that last operation and find out why my father went missing. Dead or alive, I will find him. Perhaps taken aback by how readily I agreed, thinking I was just speaking in anger, the political commissar in charge of the conversation spoke earnestly again. I know that calling off an engagement is really tough on a girl, especially when your father's fate is unknown and people are gossiping all over the place. But look, Captain Lu is innocent, isn't he? I said. I agree. I didn't want to hear it anymore. For 30 years, I'd heard this kind of talk countless times. It made me sick to my stomach, so I cut him off without hesitation. Then I added, actually, even if he hadn't brought it up, I was going to. I've felt for a while that we're not a good match, but it's not that I'm not good enough for him, it's that he's not good enough for me. After saying that, I curled my lips into a smile, stood up, and looked at the political commissar. I'll burn the marriage contract in public later. It was just a sentimental bond from our grandparents' generation anyway, since everyone thinks it's not working. It's better to break it off. With that, I turned around and walked out, but to my surprise, Lu Xingzhou was standing right outside. It suddenly dawned on me that in my past life, every time I went to see him, his expression was always so inscrutable. Now I understand, he was never truly inside any of our conversations. It seems like an organizational consideration, but it's actually his way of passing a message to someone, and I, in my naivety, kept thinking that he still cherished the same bond with me as we had in childhood, and that he would never want to break off our engagement, that it was merely the organization's way of protecting him, worried that I might drag him down. Looking back, I really did drag him down. Now he's forced to find a new flame. With that thought, I let out a soft chuckle and said to him with a slight smirk, don't worry, I'll burn the marriage contract as soon as I get back. You're free. With that, I brushed past him and was about to leave, but just as I took 2 steps, he grabbed my wrist. Lu Yu. I turned my head to look at him, recalling how he had treated me over decades in my past life, and the way I saw him being gentle and considerate to other women before I died. I felt that my previous life was nothing but a joke, and looking at him now only filled me with disgust, so my attitude wasn't exactly pleasant either. What's up? Lu Xingzhou's face was full of guilt, And his voice carried a heavy tone. Lu Yu, don't be like this, no one wanted things to turn out this way. I let out a scornful laugh and retorted, I may have stopped wanting it, but have you ever even thought about it, Lu Xingzhou? Lu Xingzhou's eyes instantly flickered with panic and avoidance. Needless to say, I knew I had hit a nerve. He must have had other intentions all along. Or maybe he's already been with that woman for who knows how long. Back in our wedding room, my heart still felt sour. The living room was pitch black, with the curtains still drawn. It was his habit. Before going on a mission, he always made sure to pull the curtains tight, saying it was to keep the building across the way from seeing inside. I reached out, found the switch, and pressed it. The light came on. An 80-square-meter apartment with 2 bedrooms and a living room. The furniture was custom-made by my dad. The sofa was a fabric one my mom picked out, and the wall clock was an heirloom from my grandpa. My dad once said, even though the house is registered under Lu Xingzhou's name, we paid 20,000 yuan for it, so it's our home. He patted Lu Xingzhou on the shoulder and said this with a hearty laugh. What did Lu Xingzhou say back then? He said, Dad, don't worry, this house will always be Lu Yu's home. Dad, standing in the middle of the living room, my legs suddenly gave way. Holding onto the sofa, I slowly crouched down, pressing my forehead against my knees. As 30 years of grievances gradually welled up inside me, I moved in on the day I got engaged to Lu Xingzhou. Back then, my dad didn't want me to move out. He said it didn't look right for a young couple to live together before getting married. We had a huge fight over it. I argued that I was going to marry him sooner or later anyway, so what was the big deal about living together now? My mom was dabbing at her tears on the sidelines, while my dad let out sighs for half the night. The next morning, he still had the driver take us there. He stood downstairs, looking up at the window for a long time. I was leaning on the windowsill, waving at him. He raised his hand in return, then turned and walked away. Only now do I understand that figure. It was the back of a father who had just placed his precious treasure into another's hands, a back filled with worry, turning back every few steps, leaving with a hardened heart. I stand up, looking around. All the pots and pans were brought from my maiden home, and on the wall hung a photo of Lu Xingzhou and me, the two of us smiling sweetly in the frame. On the back, there was also writing, Yaya and Jojo, together forever. At 19, I believed forever meant a lifetime. I thought loving someone meant giving them everything, holding nothing back, and that if I treated them well, they would surely treat me the same. I know nothing. I unknowingly chose a lifetime of hardship for myself. I raised the picture frame above my head and slammed it hard onto the ground. Shards of glass scattered across the floor, and the photo slipped out from the cracked frame, a jagged piece slicing a gash across the smiling face. Next came the teacups on the coffee table. He loved Tiguanyin and had a special set of purple clay teaware, which my dad brought back from Yixing. I flipped the whole set, tray and all, off the table. Next came the trophy on the TV cabinet, the district's youth model award he'd received, made of gold-plated plastic, light as a feather, which rolled a couple of times when it hit the floor. Then the ceramic ornament on the bookshelf, a lopsided rabbit he'd molded himself, saying it looked like me. Like what? I have never been a rabbit waiting to be slaughtered. By the end, I had nothing left to smash. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath, with shards scattered all over the floor. The living room looked like a demolition site. I looked at the mess around me and suddenly felt that my past life was just like this, looked prosperous from afar, but when you stepped on it, you realized it was all just broken pieces. The keys jingled. The door opens from the outside. Lu Xingzhou stood at the doorway, his foot not yet having crossed the threshold. When he first noticed the mess scattered all over the floor, his face changed color slowly, from white to red to purple, until finally his entire face tensed up, his eyes glaring at the pottery shards on the floor, his lips twitching twice. Lu Yu, his voice cracked, are you insane? He rushed in to pull me away, but stepped on the shards of the purple clay teapot. The sole of his shoe caught on them, and he looked down. When he lifted his head again, his eyes were red. It's really red, with bloodshot veins creeping across the whites of the eyes. He pointed at me, his finger trembling. This house is mine. What gives you the right to smash it up? At that moment, I looked at his face twisted with rage, and my mind went blank. I've seen that face in a past life, not Lu Xingzhou at 30, but Lu Xingzhou in his 50s. I was hospitalized with terminal liver cancer, and he paid me a rare visit. I begged him to stay and talk with me, but he said he was busy with work and turned away. I stared at his back, and he turned to glance at me. That's the expression, an impatient, disgusted look that made me feel like a burden to him. Now this expression appeared before me 30 years ahead of time. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Your house? I asked him, my voice low. Lu Xingzhou. Say that again. Whose house is this? Lu Xingzhou was stumped by my question. He stood amid the shattered debris, his expression seemingly cracked as well. After a long pause, he finally said slowly, the house belongs to whoever's name is on the title deed. My heart sank, because I never expected Lu Xingzhou to have the audacity to claim this house as his own. Oh, so you're saying that just because your name is on the property deed, the house is yours? Lu Xingzhou's expression was also unsettled. He took a moment to calm down, lowering his voice. Lu Yu, you trashed the place like this, and you think you're in the right. Home? I let out a laugh. Lu Xingzhou. You call this a home? Then tell me, how much did you spend on this so-called home? He fell silent. The living room light cast from behind him, illuminating one side of his face while leaving the other in shadow. The sofa. I picked it out and paid for it. This coffee table. My dad had someone bring it back from the neighboring city. He said you young folks like these glass-top ones. They make the room look brighter. The wall clock was specially brought back from the provincial capital by someone. I asked to get it. Every pot and pan I brought from my parents' home. The quilts and bedding were hand-stitched for me by my late mother, stitch by stitch. The curtains were made by me. I spoke slowly, word by word, and with each thing I said, the corners of his mouth drooped a little more. Enough, he cut me off. Fine, I nodded. Then tell me, which single thing in this house did you buy? He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Hey, Xiao Lu, what's going on? All that banging inside, are you two fighting? The door wasn't fully closed, and a hand pushed it open from outside. A middle-aged woman with a round face leaned halfway in, her hair permed in tight curls, with flour still dusting her apron, as if she had stepped away from cooking mid-meal just to catch a glimpse of the commotion. Aunt Zhao, the neighbor next door. Following behind her was a young girl, tall and slender, with a ponytail, carrying a stack of exercise books in her arms. Half of her face was hidden behind Aunt Zhao's shoulder, but her eyes darted from my face to Lu Xingzhou's, then back to mine again. That's her, the last woman I saw before I breathed my last on the hospital's concrete floor in my past life. A soft, gentle smile on a square round face, with Lu Xingzhou standing beside her, and their son next to him. I would recognize that face even if it were reduced to ashes. Zhao Li, Aunt Zhao's daughter, was Lu Xingzhou's legal wife in her past life, and in this life, she's the college student daughter from next door. My stomach suddenly clenched. Oh my goodness, what happened to the floor? Aunt Zhao stepped inside, only to step back after crunching on broken glass. Even if a young couple's having a fight, there's no need to smash things like this. Just look at all these bottles and jars. What a waste. She bent down to pick up the half-broken lid of a purple clay teapot, wiped it with her apron, and said, this is a good piece, must be worth a lot, right? Aunt Zhao, don't worry about it. Lu Xingzhou reached out to stop her. How can I not worry? Aunt Zhao straightened up. Xiao Lu, you're here all alone, and your parents aren't around. If I don't help out, who will? And Xiao Yu, you're really something. Everyone sympathizes with what happened to your family, but you can't take it out on Captain Lu. He did so much for this operation. And your father, Aunt Zhao. I interrupted her. She was taken aback, probably not expecting that I, who always called her Aunt Zhao so politely, would stop her like this today. You've been quite the helper, haven't you? I said, looking at her, then glancing at Zhao Li behind her. Zhao Li shrank back behind her mother, clutching her exercise book tightly. You. Aunt Zhao was clearly flustered and about to lash out. Lu Xingzhou's expression shifted as he stepped forward to block Aunt Zhao. Lu Yu, what do you mean by that? She's just trying to break up the fight. Don't talk nonsense. I haven't even said anything yet. How do you know I'm about to talk nonsense? He choked. I pulled a neatly folded piece of paper from my pocket, a bank transfer receipt. It bore my father's name, with the recipient being the logistics department of the Gangcheng City Public Security Bureau. The amount was exactly 20,000 yuan, and the memo read Housing Purchase Fund. The property deed has your name on it. I unfolded the receipt and placed it on the wreckage of the coffee table, but my dad paid for it, back then. The apartment the police station assigned to you only came with occupancy rights. It couldn't be sold. My dad spent 20,000 yuan to buy out the property rights from the logistics department and changed the registered owner to you. Lu Xingzhou stared at the receipt, his Adam's apple bobbing. So what? His voice dropped. Your dad paid voluntarily. the deed has my name on it, legally, it's my apartment, fine. I pulled out another piece of paper. This paper was even older, with curled up edges. It was an official red-header document from the police station's logistics department, clearly stating, this property was purchased with funds from Comrade Liu Jiangwo, 20,000 yuan in total, registered under Comrade Liu Xingzhou's name, with actual ownership belonging to the funding party. Aunt Zhao leaned over to take a look, and the smile on her face froze. Liu Xingzhou, I said, placing the two papers side by side on the table, if you want to talk law, I'll play by the law. Either you transfer the house to me today, or you return the purchase price plus the appreciation over the years. 20,000 turning into 40,000 isn't too much, is it? The third option is I go to court right now and let the judge decide. The room was so quiet you could hear the quartz clock still ticking beneath the shattered glass. Liu Xingzhou's face turned from red to white, then from white to gray. 3,000. He gritted his teeth for a long time before saying, I'll give you 3,000. As compensation, and this house is mine. I looked at him, feeling as if I had never truly known him. 3,000. After all the stuff you've broken, I'm not charging you only because of how long we've known each other. Aunt Zhao chimed in. That's right, Xiao Yu, look at all the stuff you've smashed. Captain Liu didn't hold it against you and even offered compensation. Why can't you be more grateful? What does your father's situation have to do with Captain Liu? Do you think taking your anger out on him will bring your dad back? Aunt Zhao, I turned my head to look at her. Are you so eager to speak up for Liu Xingzhou because you're hoping he'll break up with me so you can marry your daughter off to him? Aunt Zhao's face turned pale in an instant. Zhao Li jerked her head up, our eyes colliding midair before she quickly looked down again. You, how dare you speak like that? Aunt Zhao's voice shot up an octave. My daughter is a pure and innocent college student, and you're spewing such filth from your mouth, clean and innocent. I glanced at Zhao Li, her hands trembling. That's for the best. I folded the two sheets of paper on the desk, put them back into my pocket, and turned to look at Liu Xingzhou. I've said my piece about the house, now it's your turn. Liu Xingzhou's right eyelid twitched. What year is Zhao Li in college? Zhao Li's workbook slipped from her arms and fell to the ground with a thud. She crouched down to pick it up, her ponytail falling forward to cover her face, but I could see her ears turning red. Liu Xingzhou clenched his fists and then released them. Liu Yu, don't make accusations based on hearsay. Grasping at shadows, I took a step closer to him, looking up into his eyes. Then go ahead and explain, who exactly are you planning to live within that new 2-bedroom apartment you applied for? He stepped back half a pace, his heel crunching sharply on broken glass. Aunt Zhao's mouth hung open as she looked from me to Liu Xingzhou, then to her daughter, her expression shifting from shock to the panic of being found out. Zhao Li stood up, holding her homework notebook. Her face was clean and fresh, though her lips were a bit pale. Mom, I'm heading back. I still have homework to do. She turned and walked away, her steps quick. Aunt Zhao shot Liu Xingzhou a long, penetrating look. Then she left too, but before closing the door, she turned back and said to me, Xiao Yu, don't you go running your mouth, my daughter still has to live in this world. 3. The door closed. Only Liu Xingzhou and I were left in the living room. Liu Yu, his voice hoarse. Do you have to make such a scene? I'm not making a scene, I said. Listen carefully. I've made my decision about the house. You either give me 40,000 or transfer the ownership. Pick one. As for you and her, that's none of my business anymore. I'll burn the marriage certificate tonight. You can live with whoever you want. I walked toward the bedroom, pausing for half a step as I passed by him. Liu Xingzhou, ask yourself honestly, how has my father treated you? His shoulders stiffened. My dad treated him like his own son. From the very first day he was transferred to Hong Kong, my dad personally mentored him, taking him along on police calls to learn the ropes, pushing for his promotions time and again, and even covering the 20,000 yuan for his house down payment. When my dad said his eyes were wandering, I even made excuses for him. You can sleep in this room tonight, or on the sofa. I pushed open the bedroom door. Figure out the matter of the 40,000 before dawn tomorrow. After tomorrow, we'll see you in court. The moment the door closed, I heard a faint curse from outside, almost squeezed through clenched teeth in a suppressed voice. I leaned against the door, trembling all over. I raised my hand to cover my face, only to find my palm wet and hot. I realized I was crying, but I wasn't crying for him, for my dad, the house he bought for me with all his heart and soul. For the silhouette of him standing downstairs, looking up at this window. For the last words he said to me before he left. Sweetie, Dad just feels that Liu Xingzhou isn't a steady young man. Think it over again. I said I've made up my mind. He said, alright, I won't stop you, Dad, I just want you to be happy, but now, no matter how I'm doing, Dad is no longer here, there's no one left to catch me when I fall. I crouched behind the bedroom door, burying my face in my knees, 30 years of regret. Tangled with the clarity of this life, stuck in my throat, unable to go up or down. Lu Xingzhou's footsteps paced back and forth outside the door, pausing briefly before the door slammed shut. He's gone, alright. I wiped my face, got up, and opened the bottom drawer of the wardrobe. My dad's photo is still tucked under the blanket, it was taken right before his last mission. He's standing at the entrance of his station in his police uniform, grinning with that honest, simple smile of his. I held it in my arms. Dad, I've called off the wedding, don't worry about me anymore. Where are you? I'll come find you. As I stood up from the ground, I stepped on something hard. Looking down, I saw a small handmade keychain woven from red string, with a plastic bead threaded through the middle. It had fallen from the doorway, likely slipping out of Zhao Li's pocket when she crouched down to pick up her homework notebook. I bent down, picked it up, and turned it over to look at the back. Behind the bead, a character was embroidered with colorful thread, so tiny it was almost invisible. Continent. I stood there for a moment, clutching the keychain in my palm. Then he pulled open the drawer and tossed it inside. No need to ask her, no need to argue with her. This keychain is woven quite delicately, with all the loose ends neatly tucked away. Clearly, a lot of care went into it. Coupled with Aunt Zhao's sudden appearance today and her reaction to suddenly turning on me, it was clear that she and Lu Xingzhou had already established some kind of relationship by this point, for it took me a week to get the house in order. Lu Xingzhou hasn't been back. I packed his clothes and shoes into 4 cardboard boxes and stacked them by the door. He can come pick them up whenever he wants. Aunt Zhao next door has been keeping to herself these past couple of days, with her door firmly shut. Occasionally, when I run into her in the hallway, she sidles along the wall, avoiding eye contact with me. As for Zhao Li, I haven't seen her even once. Serenity. I took photos of everything in the tin box and saved them. I made 3 copies each of the bank receipt and the logistics department certificate, 1 locked in the cabinet, 1 hidden under the mattress, and 1 kept on me at all times. Then I started flipping through the admissions brochure of the Military Medical University. My dad used to say this the year I took the college entrance exam. He said, "Sweetie, why not apply to the Military Medical University? Being a female military doctor is stable, you save lives and have a secure job, unlike me, always out and about making your mom worry." I didn't listen. I studied education, but after teaching for just a few days, I got busy dating Lu Xingzhou. Now pick it up again. I have 6 months until the exam, and my foundation is decent. I don't remember everything from high school, but flipping through the textbooks will help me recall most of it. I spent the day studying at the city library, then came back in the evening to work on practice problems until midnight. I'd been holding that window seat on the 3rd floor of the library for 4 days. On the afternoon of the 5th day, someone sat down across from me, gray-haired, with reading glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, holding a military magazine in his hands. He sat down and glanced at me, took another look. "Little girl," he said, taking off his glasses and wiping them, "is your surname Lu?" I looked up. The man looked familiar, in his 50s or 60s, with broad shoulders and an upright posture, clearly a military retiree. "Who is this?" "My surname is Fong. I was your father's old comrade in arms." He closed the magazine. "You look just like him, Uncle Fong. I remember now. My dad used to bring him home for dinner, called him Old Fong, and the 2 of them would polish off a bottle of baijiu. My mom would grumble in the kitchen while frying up a couple more dishes." "Uncle Fong." I put down my pen. "What are you doing here?" "Nothing much to do after retirement, just flipping through some magazines." He looked at me, his gaze lingering on my face for a moment. "I heard about your father, and I also heard that you and Xiao Lu broke up." He nodded without asking further, glanced at me a couple of times, and his lips twitched as if he had something on the tip of his tongue but swallowed it back down. "Uncle Fong." I leaned forward. "Do you know about that operation my dad was involved in?" He didn't say a word, just tapped his fingers twice on the magazine cover. "That old Lu," he started, then paused, putting his glasses on and taking them off again. "Kid, there are some things you'd better not ask about. Why, if your dad were still here, he definitely wouldn't want you to get involved. I need to find him." Uncle Fong looked at me for a long time, then let out a sigh. "If you're serious about finding a way, go finish your studies first. Getting into the Military Medical University will be far more effective than running around asking people now." He stood up, put the magazine back on the shelf, and patted me on the shoulder as he left. "Little girl, your father once told me something. He said his daughter looks soft on the outside but has a strong backbone, and when trouble comes, she can handle it better than her own dad." He's gone. I sat there staring at the workbook on the desk, the tip of my pen bleeding a blot of ink onto the scratch paper. My dad used to say that. He said I have strong bones, then I'll have to show him tough on registration day. I stood in line, surrounded by 18 and 19-year-old fresh graduates chattering away, stuck in the middle. I felt like an odd one out. When it was my turn, the woman at the window glanced at my date of birth, then looked up and gave me a once-over. "Are you married?" "No, got engaged but then called it off." "All right, as long as the documents are complete." I handed in the form and stepped outside, standing by the door. The wind was a bit chilly, so I pulled my coat tighter. A month later, the admission notice arrived. I ranked second in the written exam and passed the interview. Holding that piece of paper, I stood downstairs for a long time, hoping that one day, if I turned around, I would suddenly see my father appear at the street corner. Then I told him, "Dad, I got into the military medical university." Just as I was thinking, someone upstairs pushed open the window and leaned out to look down. It was Aunt Zhao. The moment she saw it was me, she slammed the window shut with a bang. I smiled and went upstairs. Aunt Zhao's door was slightly ajar in the hallway, revealing half of Zhao Li's face. Our eyes met, and her lips moved slightly. "Sister Lu." I stopped in my tracks. This was the first time she had ever spoken to me on her own initiative. "I heard you got into the military medical university," she said softly, standing in the doorway with her hair in a ponytail, wearing a floral dress. "Congratulations." "Thank you." She looked at me, twisting the hem of her skirt with her fingers, as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how to begin. "Sister Lu, Captain Lu, he hasn't been coming home much lately. Did you two have a fight? Did you need him for something?" I asked. No, she shook her head quickly and smiled. "I was just asking. Last week, my water pipe broke, and Captain Lu helped fix it. I really put him out." Her voice was still soft and gentle, but the words "helped fix it a bit" were enunciated clearly. I looked at her clean, fresh face. In my past life, the last face I saw before taking my final breath in the hospital was hers. Back then, she stood beside Lu Xingzhou just like this, clean and gentle. At the time, I thought she knew nothing. It seems she knows everything now. "Fix a pipe," I chuckled. "Lu Xingzhou can't even fix his own pipes. What makes you think he'd fix someone else's?" Zhao Li's smile froze for a moment. "I'm leaving," I said. "You can keep doing your homework." I stepped past her, pushed the door open, and entered the room. After closing the door, I leaned against it for a moment. Then he pinned the admission letter on the wall. "Sit down and open your new textbook." Chapter 1, Human Anatomy 5. The playground at the military medical university is larger than I imagined. The track is 400 meters per lap, and the grass has just been mowed, the scent of fresh-cut grass mingling with the hot wind as it hits my face. I stood in the formation, wearing my newly issued uniform. The instructor up front was barking orders, left turn, right turn, and the sound of toes stomping on the concrete floor echoed with sharp, rhythmic slaps. I followed along, sweat trickling down my temples. To my left was a 19-year-old girl with a ponytail, and to my right, a young man in his early 20s standing ramrod straight. No one knew who I was, and of course, no one knew that my past life had been nothing but a joke. The sun was blazing overhead, and a patch of sweat-soaked fabric clung to my back, but my heart felt light and free. It felt like finally letting out a breath that had been held in for 30 years. While standing at attention, I stared at the poplar tree ahead for a long time, my mind completely blank. Yet, you can truly feel the sensation of being alive. The freshman orientation ceremony is held in the auditorium. A row of leaders sat on the stage, the dean, the political commissar, and several department heads. At the far end sat a young man in an army service uniform, with 2 stars on his shoulder boards, sitting upright with a stern expression. He barely moved, only occasionally lowering his head to flip through the documents in front of him. The political commissar was speaking on stage, reading out the list of new students. When he got to my name, he paused for a moment, lifted his head, and swept his gaze across the audience. "Lu Yu." I stood up and looked myself over from all angles. His pause made my heart skip a beat, but I didn't let it show on my face. As the ceremony ended, the crowd began to file out. I was swept along with the flow, inching toward the exit, when someone behind me called out, "Comrade Lu Yu." I turned around. The political commissar on the stage waved at me, then glanced at the army officer beside him, Both of them stood at the edge of the podium, watching me. I walked against the crowd back to the front of the podium, stopped, and stood with my heels together. Political Commissar, this is Commander Liu, the political Commissar said, turning slightly to introduce him. He happened to be at our school on business today and heard you were among this year's new students, so he wanted to meet you, Commander Liu. I looked up at him, and he was looking back at me. He looked to be in his early 30s, with well-proportioned features and thick eyebrows, though still young. A few fine lines at the corners of his eyes added a touch of world weariness. He calmly looked me over for 2 seconds, then nodded. Your father, Liu Jiangwo, used to be my platoon leader. I was taken aback for a moment. I served under him for 3 years. Later, he was transferred to Hong Kong City, and I stayed in the military district. His voice was soft but clear. I heard you got in through the exam, so I came to see you. His face remained expressionless as he spoke, but I noticed his fingers lightly tapped the edge of the podium, as if holding back something unsaid. Commander Liu, I asked him, when was the last time you contacted my dad? He glanced at the political commissar. The political commissar said, Old Liu, why don't you have a chat with her? I need to head to the office to take care of something first. After the political commissar left, it was just the two of us in the auditorium. The voices faded into the distance, the door was closed, and the fluorescent lights hummed. Your father called me once before he went on the mission. Division Commander Liu slipped one hand into his trouser pocket. He only mentioned one thing. He said he felt something was off about this operation, that the higher-ups were pushing too hard. I gripped the notebook in my hand tightly. What did he say was wrong? He didn't go into detail. A frown creased General Liu's brow. He just said that if anything happened to him by then, he wanted me to look after you. My throat feels tight. And then the call ended. I never got through to him again. He paused, looking me in the eye. Liu Yu, your father is a meticulous man. He wouldn't go unprepared. Since he left you the house in advance and called me ahead of time, he must have left something else too. What else? I don't know. General Liu shook his head, but he has a habit. He writes down important things in a notebook he always carries with him. That notebook, not found at the crime scene. We both said it at the same time. Commander Liu shot me a look, his eyes conveying a "I knew you were in the know" kind of meaning. Yes, he said, the scene was swept 3 times, but we didn't find any of your father's personal belongings. Either they were destroyed in the explosion, or someone took them. Something in my brain clicked. Taken away at the scene. Aside from my dad, the only people who had been there were the rescue team and those who were with him at the time. The person who was with him at the time, Liu Xingzhou. Do you have the operational report for that mission? I asked. Division Commander Liu was silent for a few seconds, then pulled a folded slip of paper from his pocket and handed it to me. On it was a string of phone numbers. This is the number for the military district archives. Mention my name, and you'll be able to access some of the public records. He took 2 steps toward the door, then turned back to look at me. But remember, some things aren't meant to be taken at face value. He's gone. I stood there, the edges of the note in my hand crumpled from my grip. Commander Liu's last words kept echoing in my mind. Don't just take it literally. I glanced down at the note and slipped it into my pocket. After leaving the auditorium and returning to the dormitory, my roommates were making their beds, and the chatter of their lively conversation drifted out through the crack in the door. I stood in the hallway for a moment, then went downstairs to the public phone on the first floor of the dorm building. He pulled out the note from Division Commander Liu from his pocket, inserted a coin, and dialed the number. It rang 3 or 4 times before someone picked up. Hello, Military District Archives. Hello. I took a deep breath. I was referred by Division Commander Liu. I'd like to access the operational report for the 623 anti-drug operation in Harbor City. There was a 2-second silence on the other end. 1 moment. Let me check the permissions. The line went quiet for a moment, with only the faint static of the current. After about half a minute, the voice on the other end resumed. The public sections are accessible, but there's a supplementary report marked classified that requires higher clearance. What supplementary report? Recorded 3 days after the operation. Recorder, Liu Xingzhou. My fingers gripping the microphone turned white. What is the content summary? There was another pause on the other end. The summary reads, explanation regarding Comrade Liu Jiangwo, the general commander of the operation, leaving his post midway, left the post midshift. My dad left his post midway. I leaned against the glass door of the phone booth, the receiver pressed to my ear. As the person on the other end kept asking what time I wanted to schedule the file review, I opened my mouth, and my voice squeezed out from my throat, "I'll schedule it for tomorrow." After hanging up, I went back to the dorm. My roommate noticed my pale face and asked if I was okay. I said, "I'm fine, just a bit of heat stroke." After lying down in bed, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Lu Xingzhou, did my dad leave his post midway or did someone force him to leave his post? I turned over and pulled the blanket over my head, but all I could think about was Commander Lu's words, replaying over and over in my mind, "Don't just take it literally." 6. The next morning, I asked my counselor for leave and took the bus 3 stops to the military compound. The guard checked my ID and appointment details before letting me in. I followed the plain tree-lined road to the end, where the archives were on the second floor of an old gray-white building. The stairs were made of terrazzo, with handrails polished to a shine, and they creaked underfoot. I was received by a young cadre with glasses, Xiao Chen, who checked my military academy student ID before leading me into the reading room. "Here are all the unclassified combat reports," he said, placing a manila envelope on the table. "Take your time reading them, but you can't take them out of this room, and no photos." "Where's that supplementary report?" Xiao Chen adjusted his glasses and said, "That's classified. Unless you have General Lu's signature or someone of higher rank, you can't access it." I nodded and opened the file folder. Inside were 7 or 8 pages detailing the time, location, list of personnel involved, a summary of the operation process, and a conclusion of the results. I read through those printed words, line by line. Operation time, 0430 hours, June 23, 1994. Operation codename, Thunder Sweep. Target, a drug lab located 30 kilometers outside the city. Commander-in-Chief, Lu Zhangwo, Deputy Commander and Assault Team Leader, Lu Xingzhou. The operation process section was about 300 words long, roughly stating that each team encircled the target area according to the planned scheme, but an unexpected explosion occurred as they approached the target zone, causing some buildings to collapse and communication to be cut off. The rescue team arrived at the scene 20 minutes after the explosion, cleared the rubble, and found no trace of Commander-in-Chief Lu Zhangwo. Unexpected explosion. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. Why was there an explosion? Who set it off? How was it detonated? The combat report didn't mention a single word about it. I flipped further back, and tucked behind the action summary was an on-site inventory list, which recorded the equipment serial numbers, firearm numbers, and communication devices recovered from the rubble. The last line read, "Personal belongings, none. My dad always carried that small brown leather notebook, about the size of a palm, with its cover worn and frayed at the edges, filled with all sorts of odds and ends. He never goes on a mission without his notebook. My mom once said he even takes it with him when he goes downstairs to buy a pack of cigarettes." The list says none. I closed the file folder, looked up, and asked Xiao Chen, "Do you have any photos of the scene?" Xiao Chen thought for a moment and said, "I do have the negatives, but they haven't been developed yet. Do you want to see them?" "Look." He rummaged through the cabinet again and pulled out an iron box, with a label reading 623 on the lid, inside which a row of negative sleeves was neatly arranged. I took them over and sat by the window, pulling out the negatives one by one to hold them up to the light and examine them. The first few shots show the deployment scene before the operation, with a group of people gathered around a map. There's a figure from behind that I think looks like my dad, but the angle is too sideways to tell clearly. Further ahead lay the aftermath of the explosion, a scene of utter devastation, crumbling walls, charred timber, and exposed, snapped steel bars, all in chaotic disarray. My hand stopped when I saw the third one. There's something in the bottom left corner of the frame that was likely accidentally captured while taking the photo. It's not the main subject. I squinted and leaned in for a closer look. On the film, there was a blurry outline, a broken beam pressing down on something, with a piece of fabric peeking out from underneath. Deep blue fabric. My dad was wearing a dark blue training uniform the day he went on the mission. That morning, I saw him off at the door and even remarked that his outfit was too dark. You could barely spot him from a distance. He smiled and said that when judging people, you look at their face, not their clothes. I held the negative a little higher, and as the light streamed in from the window, the deep blue on it became even clearer. A half arm was exposed where the beam pressed down. The cuff button's still intact. There's a loose thread on the cuff of my dad's training uniform. I offered to sew it for him, but he said there's no rush. He'll have me do it next time I come back. My fingers trembled as I stared at the blurry suture line on the negative. Xiao Chen, my voice tightened. Can this negative be developed? He walked over, checked the number, and said, "All right, there's a darkroom right across, I'll develop it for you. Wait 15 minutes, he left with the negatives. I sat alone in the reading room, the folder spread out in front of me, unable to take in a single word, birds chirping outside the window, voices drifting up from downstairs, muffled and indistinct. Nothing can be made out clearly. 15 minutes felt like 15 years when Xiaochen came back. He was holding a photo paper that hadn't dried yet, its edges still damp, handing it to me. He said, "Take a look. The thing under that piece of wood, it's much clearer now that it's been magnified. I'll take it." When a black and white photo is enlarged, every single texture is laid bare before your eyes. A broken log lies across the lower left corner of the frame, pinning down a human figure beneath it. Most of the body is buried under rubble, with only the right arm and half a shoulder exposed. On that cuff, I saw the loose thread. "I know that thread that morning," I said. "Let me sew it up," but he replied, "We'll do it when I get back." I couldn't talk him out of it, just as he was heading out the door. I tugged at his sleeve again and said, "Next time, I'm not lifting a finger." He laughed, patted my hand, and said, all right, I'll let you sew it when I'm back." He hasn't come back. Where was Lu Xingzhou when this log fell on him? Xiaochen. I looked up and asked him, "Who's leading the rescue team?" Xiaochen was taken aback. "The action report says it was Captain Lu Xingzhou." "When did he enter the ruins?" Xiaochen flipped through the files. "The report says he went in with the first rescue team about 10 minutes after the explosion. They cleared the area for about half an hour, then reported to command. No one was found on site. No one was found on site. My dad was pinned under that beam in the corner, with this sleeve cuff sticking out. Lu Xingzhou cleared the area for half an hour. How could he not see it? Either he didn't clean it properly, or he saw it. I think the latter is more likely." I folded the photo carefully, put it in my pocket, and thanked Xiaochen. As I stepped out, I lingered in the hallway for a moment, then went down to the first floor, found a payphone, and dialed the landline number Commander Liu had left me. It rang twice before being answered. "Commander Liu, I've been to the archives." Any findings?" "There's a photo from the scene." I took a breath. My dad was buried under the rubble, his right arm exposed. I recognized that shirt. There was silence on the other end of the line for 3 seconds. Lu Xingzhou led the team to clear the scene, and he reported that no one was there. Silence again. "Is that photo of yours clear?" "Clear. I can see the loose threads on the cuffs." "All right." General Lu's voice dropped. "I'll handle this." I hung up the phone and stood in the hallway. The sunlight streamed through the window, warm against my face. I pulled the photo from my pocket and took another look. That arm lay still across the black and white frame. "Dad, is that you?" "It must be you, right?" 7. General Liu is more efficient than I expected. On the third day, he called me back and said that through internal military channels, a supplementary investigation into Operation 623 had been initiated, with the photos included as new evidence. However, a formal conclusion would take time, and he told me to focus on my studies for now. I can't rest easy. That image keeps replaying in my mind. Every night when I close my eyes, all I see is that arm trapped under the log. Was my dad conscious or unconscious at the time? Did he call out for anyone? Did anyone hear him? And that notebook too. If Lu Xingzhou found that notebook while cleaning up the scene, did he take it? And if he did, where did he hide it? What was written in it that made it so necessary for him to take it away? I was zoning out in class. When the anatomy teacher asked where the human collarbone is, all I could think about was the button size on my dad's training uniform. My roommate noticed something was off with me. After the lights were out that night, she quietly asked if something had happened at home. I just mumbled a few vague words and brushed it off. On the 4th day, I went to the library to look through old newspapers. A week after the operation, the Harbor City Daily published a feature article with the headline, "Drug-Fighting Hero Sacrifices Himself to Block the Bullet Hole. Lu Xingzhou Breaks the Drug Den Alone." Below it was a photo of Lu Xingzhou in his police uniform saluting, with small text beside it reading, "Recipient of the Harbor City Highest Special Police Honor Award." I read that report over and over again. There is a line, after the explosion, Comrade Lu Xingzhou was among the first to rush into the fire, disregarding his own safety, directing the rescue team to conduct a thorough search, and only withdrawing after confirming that no one had survived. A thorough search. I let out a cold laugh and folded the newspaper shut. The so-called thorough search didn't even bother to lift the beam that was pinning my father down. After leaving the library, I walked back along the school's plain tree-lined path, mulling over what to do next. The military district has initiated the investigation process, but it's unclear how long it'll take for the official results to come through. I can't just sit around and wait. Just as I was thinking about it, the pager in my pocket suddenly vibrated. I looked down and saw a message on the screen from an unfamiliar number. Urgent matter regarding your father, call me back as soon as you see this. A landline number is attached at the end. I walked over to the payphone at the library entrance, dropped in a coin, and dialed. It rang several times before someone picked up. On the other end was a middle-aged woman's voice, with an accent from across the border. Hello, are you Lu Jiangwo's daughter? I stopped in my tracks. This is he. Who's calling? Please, don't worry about who I am. The voice on the other end was very low, with the sound of wind whistling in the background, as if they were outdoors. Your father once helped my family, and I owe him a favor. I heard you're looking for him. I'm going to tell you something, so listen carefully. Go ahead. About 2 months after your father's accident, a homeless man was rescued under a bridge in the border town of Mingla. He was covered in injuries at the time and couldn't remember who he was. He was taken to the town clinic for a few days, then left on his own. Some people thought he looked like your father. My fingers turned white as I gripped the phone. Are you sure? That's why I'm calling you, because I'm not sure. The voice on the other end said, the doctor surnamed Yang from that clinic is still around. If you want to look into it, go ask him. The call ended. I stood under the plane tree, listening to the leaves rustling overhead in the wind. Mingla town, border. My dad might be at the border at that moment. There was only one thought in my mind. Go. 8. I went back, packed a backpack with 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, all my cash, and that photo of my dad, then rushed to the counselor's office, left a message saying I had some family matters and needed a few days off, and walked out of the school gate. After a night on the train, we endured another 5 bumpy hours on a bus from the port city to the border. It's just a short stretch on the map, but as you actually travel, the road narrows, the buildings shrink, and the roadside signs shift from Chinese to bilingual. The air feels damp and heavy, mingling with the smell of earth and some unidentifiable spice. Mingla town was smaller than I had imagined. It takes less than 10 minutes to walk the length of the main street. A few shops are scattered along the way, with an old man dozing at the entrance of a grocery store. Motorbikes roar past, kicking up a cloud of dust. I found the town clinic, a grayish-white 2-story building with a faded sign hanging by the entrance. Pushing the door open, a smell of iodine hit me. A nurse sat at the front desk. I asked if Dr. Yang was in, and without even looking up, she said, 2nd floor, 2nd room on the left. I go upstairs. The second door on the left was open. Inside sat a man in his 50s, wearing a white lab coat and reading glasses, writing something. I knocked on the doorframe, and he looked up at me. Dr. Yang, now, where does it hurt? I'm not here to see a doctor. I walked in and closed the door behind me. I'm looking for someone. About 2 years ago, a homeless man was brought here, covered in injuries, and he couldn't remember who he was. Dr. Yang's pen stopped. He took off his reading glasses, gave me a thorough once-over, and his gaze finally settled on my eyes and brows, lingering there for a long time. What's your relationship with him? He might be my dad. Dr. Yang was silent for a moment, put down his pen, pulled open a drawer, and fished out an old medical record booklet. He flipped through it and stopped at a page in the middle. The person you're talking about stayed here for 7 days. He turned the medical record around and slid it across to me. When he was brought in, he had obvious impact injuries to the head, was disoriented, had multiple soft tissue contusions, and an old scar on his right arm. I turned to that page. A 1-inch photo was pasted on it. The man in the picture was gaunt beyond recognition, with disheveled hair, a dazed look in his eyes, a scab wound at the corner of his mouth, and a bruise on his right cheek, but I recognized it at a single glance. That's my dad. Where is he? My throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Dr. Yang closed the medical record with a sigh. After 7 days in the hospital, he left on his own, and no one could talk him out of it. Someone later spotted him under the bridge at the east end of town, but after that, no one knows. I tried looking for him a few times myself, but never found him. I stand up. Where is the bridge opening? You're going alone. Dr. Yang frowned as he stood up. It's a mess over there, and you're a young lady. Where is the bridge opening? He stared at me for a long moment, then pointed out the window. Go out the east end of town, follow the river for 10 minutes, and you'll find it under that row of abandoned bridge piers. I didn't say anything more and turned to walk out the door. Heading east along the main street, the surroundings grow increasingly desolate, with storefronts giving way to vegetable plots and then to wasteland. The water in the ditch is murky, tinged with a muddy yellow, and the air carries the smell of decaying grass. After walking along the river for about 10 minutes, I saw the row of bridge piers. Concrete bridge piers stood one after another, with discarded wooden planks, torn cardboard boxes, and a few oil drums piled beneath them. I drew closer, slowing my steps, each footfall crunching on the gravel. Under the third bridge pier, a person was crouching. His hair was gray and tangled into a messy knot, his clothes so faded that their original color was unrecognizable. He crouched there, poking at scraps of paper on the ground with a stick, mumbling something indistinctly under his breath. I stopped. He looked up at me, cloudy eyes, sunken cheeks, the scar at the corner of his mouth scabbing over and breaking open again and again. His right sleeve was rolled up, revealing an old scar on his forearm, the one he got shielding me from broken glass when I was 6. He looked at me, his eyes empty. Dad. I crouched down, but my voice wasn't lowered. He tilted his head to look at me, the stick in his hand no longer poking. His lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something, yet nothing seemed to come out. I burst into tears the second time I called out. He watched me cry, then reached out and touched the tears on my face, his fingers rough and cold. Then he said something, slurring his words, but I caught it clearly. He said, daughter. 9. My dad squatted under the bridge for 3 hours and refused to leave. After dark, Dr. Young arrived, crouched down, and said, Old Lou, your daughter's here to take you home. Only then did he slowly loosen the stick in his hand. On the way back to Hong Kong City, he leaned on my shoulder and slept the whole way, so thin that his bones were digging into me. The hospital ran a full battery of tests. The doctor said it's a traumatic brain injury compounded by long-term malnutrition, with severe memory damage. No telling if he'll recover. I've got him set up on the 3rd floor of the inpatient ward. I attend classes during the day and stay by his bedside every night. I was talking to him about childhood memories. Sometimes he would shake his head, other times he would just stare blankly, but on the 3rd night, he suddenly sat up, sweating profusely, gripping my hand tightly. Lu Xingzhou ran away, he said. I was completely frozen. In the dead of night, he gradually let out a few more words, piecing together a fragmented scene. After the explosion, the house collapsed, and a beam of wood fell on him. Lu Xingzhou was right there at the time, turned back to glance at him, and then ran away. After getting out, he told the rescue team that there was no one inside. For a full half hour, my dad was trapped under the rubble, while he stood outside telling everyone it was empty. I recorded that passage. It was a portable tape recorder, about the size of a palm, and a single cassette could record for 2 hours. I originally brought it to class for taking notes, but I never expected it to come in handy for this purpose. After recording, I rewound the tape and listened to it, though the sound was muffled. The words, Lu Xingzhou has run away, came through loud and clear. I took out the tape, wrote the date on the label with a pen, and put it into a tin box. 2 days later, Lu Xingzhou showed up at the hospital. He wore a gray jacket and black pants, carrying a bag of fruit in his hand, and stood at the door of the ward as if hesitating whether to go in. I walked over from the other end of the hallway, and his eyes flickered the moment he saw me. I'm here to see our dad. Our dad. I blocked the doorway and asked him, what for? To see if he's woken up, or if he remembers what happened that day. His face turned pale inch by inch. Lu Yu, stop talking nonsense, then tell me. I took a step closer. After the explosion, when you ran out, did you look back? I looked at him, my fingers tearing through the plastic bag, sending apples rolling across the floor. I pulled the tape recorder out of my bag and pressed play. The tape hissed softly as it spun, and my dad's muffled voice came through the speaker, echoing 3 times in the quiet hallway. Lu Xingzhou ran away. Lu Xingzhou stepped back a couple of paces and leaned against the wall. His lips trembled for a long moment before he managed to say, it's not what you think. I said, then tell me what it is. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. I picked up the apples one by one and shoved them back into his hands. Go on. Leave, don't worry about my dad, worry about yourself. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away. His pace quickened, and by the end, he was nearly running out of the inpatient department entrance. Ran off again. 10. When I returned to the ward, my dad was awake and mumbled something like baby girl to me. I held his hand tightly and said, Dad, I'm right here. It was almost 10 o'clock that night when I got back to the neighborhood from the hospital. The hallway was pitch black. The motion sensor light had been broken for 2 weeks with no one fixing it. I felt my way up the wall, and when I reached my door and fumbled for my keys, Aunt Zhao's door next to mine cracked open. Zhao Li stood in the doorway with a coat draped over her shoulders, her hair loose and her face bare of makeup. She looked as if she had been waiting specifically for me. Sister Lu. I stopped my hand, the key inserted in the lock but not turned. Can I help you? She stood in the doorway, biting her lower lip, and it took her several seconds before she finally spoke. Lu Xingzhou came to see me today. Why are you telling me this? He was crying. Zhao Li's voice was very soft. He said your dad woke up, said you found out something. He was terrified. I turned the key and opened the door. Sister Lu, she called out from behind. Can you please let him go? I turned around to look at her. She stood in the dim hallway, her eyes bright, her expression carrying both a plea and something I couldn't quite name. It was as if she was certain I'd soften, just like before, that I'd give in whenever someone begged me. Zhao Li, I said, what gives you the right to say this to me? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. His fiancée, his legal wife, or the one whose keychain has the character Zhou embroidered on it. The color drained from her face in an instant. If he really wants you, tell him to come talk to me himself. I pushed the door open. Don't send you to do it. I closed the door. The hallway was quiet for a moment, then came the soft sound of Aunt Zhao's door gently closing. 11. My father's memory recovered faster than I expected. He's starting to recognize people. Every afternoon when he wakes up, he can call out my name correctly. Once, when he saw the old man in the next bed eating an orange, he suddenly said, "Your mom loves oranges." It took me a long moment to realize he was talking about my mother. My mom passed away from an illness a few years ago. My dad carried a heavy guilt for a long time, blaming himself for not noticing her sickness sooner. His eyes were a little red when he said that. On the morning of the 10th day, as I was wiping his face, he suddenly grabbed my wrist, his eyes fixed on the window, and spoke a complete sentence. That day, he was the one who called out first. I stopped what I was doing and quickly pressed the record button on the tape recorder. He shouted, "Explosion," and everyone rushed out. I turned back. Someone didn't make it out, so I went back to pull him out. As the timber came crashing down, Lu Xingzhou was at the doorway and glanced back at me. At this point, he looked at me deeply. I called out to him, but he didn't move. Then he walked away. "And after you leave?" I asked, gripping his hand tightly. Then someone came. My dad frowned, thinking for a moment. A voice outside said there was no one inside, telling us not to go in. That voice was Lu Xingzhou. After saying all this, my father seemed to have exhausted all his strength and drifted back to sleep with his eyes closed. I turned off the recorder, my heart a jumble of mixed emotions. The next morning, I handed the tape and notebook to the person sent by Division Commander Lu. That afternoon, Division Commander Lu returned the call to the dormitory reception, and the old man on duty called me to answer it. He said on the phone that the formal review process has been initiated. Lu Xingzhou has been suspended from duty, and all relevant evidence has been submitted. He said your father's testimony is the key, so have the hospital issue a mental state certificate to ensure the legal validity of the testimony. I did as told. On the evening of the 3rd day, I ran into Xiaochen in the hospital corridor, the bespectacled clerk from the archives. He greeted me and said that Lu Xingzhou was taken away today, then asked if I knew about it. I said I know. He gave me a look as if he wanted to say something, then left. Half an hour later, the landline at the nurse's station rang. The nurse on duty called me to pick up the phone. I answered, and on the other end was Lu Xingzhou's voice, hoarse and strained. "Lu Yu," he said, "I want to see you, just once. No contact with relevant personnel is allowed during the review period. I've submitted the application, and it's been approved. Come by tomorrow at 9 a.m. I didn't say yes or no, just hung up the phone. My dad woke up once during the night while I was staying by his bedside. When he saw me sitting there, he reached out and gently touched my head. His fingers were warmer than before, and his nails were neatly trimmed. He finally looked like a normal person. "Sweetie," he said, "how have you been?" I said yes, "that's good." He patted the back of my hand and drifted back to sleep. After he fell asleep, I stood by the hospital window for a long time, gazing at the yellowish glow of the streetlights below, thinking about the man I was to meet tomorrow. In my past life, I waited for him for 30 years, yet he never once offered to see me. I don't want to see him for the rest of my life, yet he says he wants to see me. How absurd. 12. On the 4th day after the review, Lu Xingzhou was released. It's not release, it's release on bail pending trial. Xiaochen left me a message on my pager, saying that procedurally he is allowed to move freely during the investigation, but is restricted from leaving the country and from contacting relevant witnesses. I didn't reply to him that afternoon. I left school and headed toward the hospital. As I turned into the entrance of the residential area, I noticed a black Santana parked by the roadside, still running, with white smoke sputtering from its exhaust pipe. The car door was open, and Lu Xingzhou sat in the driver's seat. He had changed into clean clothes and had his hair trimmed, looking more presentable than on the day of the review, but his face had thinned considerably, with sunken eye sockets, prominent cheekbones, and a fresh cut from shaving on his chin. Seeing me approach, he pushed open the car door and got out. Lu Yu, I didn't stop walking, and he quickly caught up to block my path. I'm here to take you home. I stopped in my tracks and looked up at him. The expression he wore when saying this was exactly the same as in our past life, his eyes heavy with weight, his brows furrowed downward, and his lips pressed into a pained, aggrieved curve, as if he had made some great sacrifice just to utter those words. Go home. I let out a laugh. Which home? The one my dad paid for, or that two-bedroom apartment you're sharing with Zhao Li? His expression cracked for a moment, then pieced itself back together. I have nothing to do with her. Why are you applying for that new house anyway? He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out, his fingers gripping the car keys and rubbing them against the seam of his trousers a couple of times. I stepped around him to leave, and he called out from behind, Lu Yu. My steps faltered for a moment, but I didn't stop. He took 2 quick steps to catch up, his voice suddenly cracking, as if forced out from the depths of his throat. You're also reborn, aren't you? I stopped. I know you remember. He moved around to stand in front of me, staring into my eyes, his lips trembling. You remember everything from your past life. That's why you suddenly changed, calling off the engagement, studying to become a military doctor, going to find your father. I looked at him. Lu Xingzhou, when did you find out? His expression seemed both relieved and more flustered. He stepped back half a pace, leaning against the hood of the Santana, and ran his fingers through his hair. That day you trashed the house, I stood in the living room watching you. The look in your eyes. His voice trailed off. The way you looked at me was exactly the same as the last time you looked at me in our past life. That's when I knew. The last look. He was talking about the look I gave him before I collapsed on the hospital's concrete floor. At that moment, he was standing next to that woman, holding a cup of hot water and handing it to her. I was lying on the ground watching him, and he turned back to glance at me. It was that very look. So you've been reborn too, I said. He didn't deny it. We stood on the road at the entrance of the residential complex. A few cyclists passed by, ringing their bells. The sun was setting in the west, casting a white glare off the windshield of his Santana. The first thing you did after being reborn was to have them come and break off our engagement, I said. I'm not. You are. I cut him off. You stood outside the organization's office, listening, and only felt at ease when you heard me say yes. The first thing you did in this life, just like in the last, was to try to get rid of me. He fell silent, staring down at the tips of his shoes. It's fine. I stepped back. I wasn't planning to keep bothering you anyway. Let's just go our separate ways. I turned and walked into the neighborhood. He shouted something from behind, but I didn't catch it. Without looking back, I entered the building entrance, and my legs felt a bit weak as I climbed the stairs. He was also reborn. He knew exactly what he owed me from a past life, yet the first thing he did in this one was still to dump me. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, leaning against it for a moment to catch my breath. But that's fine too. Now that no one is playing dumb, things are actually easier to handle. 13. He came again the next morning. I went downstairs to buy breakfast, and the moment I stepped out of the building, I saw him sitting on the stone bench in the garden, wearing a dark gray jacket, with 4 or 5 cigarette butts scattered at his feet. When he saw me come out, he stood up and crushed the cigarette butt under his shoe. Lu Yu, I need to talk to you. Speak. He glanced around. The community garden was nearly empty in the early morning. An old man from the next building was walking his dog in the distance, not looking his way. Can we sit down and talk? I didn't sit down. He stood for a moment, then sat back on the stone bench himself, resting his hands on his knees and lowering his head as if organizing his thoughts. I know I wronged you in a past life, he began, his voice hoarse. After your father's incident, the organization talked to me and told me to break off our engagement. I didn't agree. You didn't agree. I let out a laugh. Lu Xingzhou, do you want to say that again? Who was the one standing outside the door, listening and waiting for me to be the first to call off the engagement? His shoulders hunched slightly. I really didn't know what to do back then. Your father was missing, and everyone was watching me. if I had been the one to call off the engagement, what would people have said about me? So you let me make a scene, making everyone think I'm the one clinging to you, while you play the innocent one." He didn't deny it. After a moment of silence, he spoke again, "But we still got married. I gave you a home, I protected you, and the 30 years that followed for you weren't too bad, were they?" "Not bad." I looked down at him. "Lu Xingzhou, put your hand on your heart and tell me, how were those 30 years for me? How many times a year did you come home? How many words have you spoken to me in total? Did you think that just giving me a meal was enough to count as treating me well?" A muffled sound escaped his throat, as if he wanted to say something but swallowed it back. "I do." He paused. "I do spend a lot of time away from home. It's because I feel guilty. Every time I see you, I'm reminded of your father, and I just can't face you." "So when did you get together with Zhaoli?" He jerked his head up to look at me, his pupils contracting. "You saw her when you died in your past life, didn't you? Answer my question." He remained silent for a long time, so long that the old man walking his dog had already passed by, leaving only the sound of wind rustling through the leaves in the garden. "After we got married," he finally said. "Your father." "After my dad went missing," I repeated, nodding. "So you were marrying me while already setting up shop elsewhere, living in that 2-bedroom you applied for, right? Just one street away from here." A flush crept up his neck, rising slowly from the collar. "You don't have to say it, I already know," I said. "After I died in my past life, I stayed in the hospital a little longer and saw some things. I saw you living with her in that apartment, and I saw that man calling you dad." Lu Xingzhou's lips trembled, and his whole body seemed to have had a bone removed, collapsing onto the stone bench. "Where's the marriage certificate?" I asked with a smile, because it was only when I was on my last breath and overheard the doctor that I realized my file actually listed me as single. He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. 3 years into our marriage, she got pregnant and insisted on marrying me, so I used a dangerous mission as an excuse to annul our marriage, even though I already knew the answer. Hearing him say it out loud still hit me like a dull blow to the chest. I stood for a while, waiting for the pain to pass. "Lu Xingzhou, do you know what I hate you most for in this life?" He looked up at me. "I don't hate you for finding someone else. If you had told me plainly that your feelings had changed, I would have been hurt, but I could have accepted it. What I hate is that you stopped loving me long ago, yet you kept me trapped in that empty shell for 30 years. You made me believe we still had a home, when in truth, you had already moved it away." "Lu Yu," his voice seemed to be clawed out from the depths of his throat. Do you have any idea how I feel right now, seeing you come all this way to tell me this?" I looked at him. "I find it utterly ridiculous, Lu Xingzhou. In my past life, I waited for you my entire life, and you never spoke a single truthful word to me. In this life, when I no longer want to hear it, you come running to me, eager to pour it all out." He stood up from the stone bench and reached out to take my hand. I dodged it. "One more thing, about my dad." His hand froze in midair. "After the explosion that day, you ran away. You went out and told the rescue team there was no one inside. Tell me, did you know at that time that he was trapped under the wood?" He looked at me, his gaze shattering bit by bit. "I'm asking you a question," I said. "I know." He forced out 2 words from his throat. "I saw him when I turned around, and then you ran away." He didn't say another word, his head drooping as he stared at his shoes, his whole body trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Lu Xingzhou, when you were by my father's side, what were you thinking in that moment when you turned back to look at him?" He suddenly bent over, hands on his knees, his shoulders heaving. His voice was choked with emotion. "At that moment, my mind was full of myself. I thought if that log had hit me, I'd be done for. All I wanted was to run, nothing else crossed my mind." I watched his hunched, trembling back as he walked away. "Enough, Lu Xingzhou, you really, truly, make me sick." Lu Xingzhou looked up, his face streaked with tears. "Lu Yu, what did you say?" He opened his mouth as if to speak, but in the end, nothing came out. I turned around and walked back. "I'm leaving," I said with my back to him. "Figure out how much that apartment of yours is worth. The court will contact you about it. As for my father's matter, you can discuss it with them." A dull thud came from behind, as if something had slammed onto the stone bench. I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, the court summons arrived. Lu Xingzhou's lawyer called once, indicating they want to pursue an out-of-court settlement. They're willing to cash out my share of this apartment at market value, plus offer an additional emotional compensation. I say you guys settle our father's medical bills first, and let the court decide the rest. The lawyer stammered a couple of words and hung up. On the same day, Division Commander Liu sent me a message, saying that the investigation was in its final stages. The charge of dereliction of duty against Liu Xingzhou was essentially substantiated. Additionally, there was now witness testimony regarding his unauthorized change of route during the operation, which led to the exposure of the target. I replied with a thank you. That evening, I returned to my apartment. The sofa had been reupholstered, the coffee table replaced with a new one, and the wall clock I had cleaned and rehung. The living room was spotless, with sunlight streaming through the window, casting a warm glow on the wooden floor. My dad spent another 2 weeks in the hospital for rehab, and now he can slowly take a few steps while holding on to the wall. The doctor said he can be discharged to recover at home in a little while. Going home, I mean my apartment, my dad's place. After the investigation, which was a complete injustice to him, the organization decided to compensate him with a 2-story house, which is still being renovated. After tidying up the place, I sat on the sofa and looked around, and suddenly my nose tingled, when my dad stood downstairs and looked up at this window. Back then, was he thinking that this apartment would one day give his daughter a stable home? He even thought ahead about his own downfall. 20,000 yuan. A house, and a certificate from the logistics department. He had everything arranged for me before he got into trouble. He said nothing. If he had said a few more words that night, tried to persuade me a little more, maybe I wouldn't have been so foolish as to rush off to Liu Xingzhou, but he didn't. He only said, think it over again, and once you've made up your mind, Dad won't stop you. He never stops me, but he always has my back. When I was walking the tightrope alone, you reached out your arms and caught me beneath the cliff. 15. The court hearing is scheduled for the 15th of next month. The lawsuit listed 3 demands. First, the return of the home purchase payment and the appreciated value of the property. Second, the other party to cover my father's medical expenses and subsequent rehabilitation costs. And third, a demand. I flipped to the 3rd page and saw the last item I had written, hesitated for a moment, but still didn't delete it. The 3rd demand is to confirm that Liu Xingzhou shall bear corresponding compensation liability for the damages caused to Comrade Liu Jiangwo due to dereliction of duty during the 623 operation in 1994, with the specific amount to be determined by the court. This was added by Commander Liu for me. He said that including this clause doesn't guarantee it will be upheld in court, but putting it in writing shows our stance. When I pushed open the hospital room door, my dad was sitting in the chair by the window, soaking up the sun, wrapped in the plaid blanket I had bought him, slowly sipping a cup of water. He set the cup down when he saw me come in and gave me a smile. Here comes the little one. I'm here. I set the fruit on the nightstand, pulled up a stool, and sat down beside him. He looked at me, then suddenly reached out and patted my head. His palm was rough but warm, slowly sliding from the top of my head to the back, giving it 2 gentle taps, exactly the same gesture he used when coaxing me to sleep as a child. You've lost weight. No. I'm eating just fine. He nodded, thought for a moment, and then asked, is that person still giving you trouble? He knows who I'm talking about. No, he's under investigation and will be sentenced soon. He was silent for a moment, tapped his fingers twice on his knee, and let out a sigh. Sweetie, if only I had tried harder to stop you back then. You did warn me, I said. You told me his eyes were shifty and to think it over. I just wouldn't listen. My dad looked out the window and fell silent. The setting sun cast its glow on his profile, tinting the white hair at his temples a warm yellow. The wrinkles on his face were deeper than before, but the light in his eyes had returned. From now on, you can do whatever you want. He turned to look at me. I won't stop you, but I'll be right here watching. If anyone dares to bully you again, they'll have me to answer to. I laughed, and as I laughed, the corners of my eyes grew wet. All right, I said. Then you need to eat well and recover properly. You have to keep an eye on me, he said. Okay, downed the rest of the water in his glass in one gulp, and then gave me a smile. That night, when I came out of the hospital, it was already pitch dark, and the streetlights glowed with an orange hue. There aren't many stars in the sky, but the moon is quite bright. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Division Commander Liu. The court date is set. Thank you for your help. He replied quickly. It's only right. Your dad was my old platoon leader. I put my phone away, pulled my coat tighter, and headed toward the bus stop. After taking a couple of steps, she stopped and glanced back at the building of the traditional Chinese medicine hospital. The light was on in the east-facing window on the 3rd floor. That was my dad's hospital room. I watched for a while, then he turned and walked away. This time, I walked with steady steps, making sure each foot was firmly planted before taking the next, because I know that dad is getting old, and on the road ahead, I need to be stronger, work harder, and become more capable, to walk it alone even when my father can no longer be my safety net. I can still be my own. 16. The trial of Liu Xingzhou's case has begun. The charges of dereliction of duty and perjury are backed by a complete chain of evidence: my father's recorded testimony, the negatives of the on-site photos, the time discrepancies in the operation report, and the supplementary statements from the rescue team members who were there. The evidence is conclusive, he pleaded. Guilty in court. When the judge pronounced the verdict, my father sat beside me, hands resting on his knees, back straight. He's been out of the hospital for 2 weeks now, and his complexion has mostly recovered, apart from occasional lapses in memory. He's fine with daily life. As the gavel came down, Liu Xingzhou turned his head and glanced toward the audience. His gaze swept past everyone and landed on my face. I didn't look at him, just gently patted Dad on the back. He watched for a moment, then was taken away by the bailiff. Stepping out of the courthouse, the sun beat down. Father stopped on the steps and took a deep breath. Sweetie, he said, let's go home. I'll make you braised pork belly for lunch. I said yes. On the way back, he walked half a step ahead of me, his shoulders broader than when he first returned, and his step steadier. The sunlight stretched his shadow long and slanted across the asphalt road. I walked along that shadow, just like I did when I was a child. When I reached the front door, I fished the key out of my pocket, slid it into the lock, and gave it a turn. The door opened. The curtains in the living room were wide open, and sunlight spilled across the entire sofa. On the coffee table sits a pot of pothos, a housewarming gift from Aunt Jean next door. My dad walked over, touched the leaves of the pothos, and turned back to give me a smile. This is a nice house. You bought it. He waved his hand and said, it's yours. That day at noon, he indeed made braised pork belly. The flavor was a bit lighter than before, probably because he hadn't cooked in a while and was out of practice. Still, I ate 3 bowls of rice. The next 3 years passed quickly. I successfully graduated and received my rank insignia, standing on the parade ground in my newly issued uniform. The shoulder boards were brand new, and the sunlight glinting off them was almost blinding. My father was sitting below the grandstand watching me. I waved at him, and he gave me a thumbs up. After the conferment ceremony ended, the crowd dispersed, and I stood by the edge of the playground for a while. Someone came up from behind and handed me a bottle of water. Congratulations, it was Division Commander Liu. He stood half a step away from me in his crisp dress uniform, 2 stars on his shoulders, his gaze fixed on the distant flagpole where the flag was being lowered. Thanks. I took the water, unscrewed the cap, and took a sip. He didn't say much, just stood there with me, watching the flag for a while. The wind was gentle that day, and the red flag slowly drooped in midair before being gathered into the arms of the soldier tasked with lowering it. What's your plan next? He asked. The assignment hasn't been decided yet. I might stay at the school or go to a military hospital. He nodded and then asked, how's your father doing? She's doing great. Just a few days ago, she was telling me she wanted to make me some soup. He let out a soft laugh, the kind where the corners of his mouth barely lifted. Then he turned his head to look at me and said, I'll go see him this weekend. I said okay. He nodded, turned around, and walked away. His strides were long, and his silhouette stretched far by the setting sun. I stood there for a little while longer, finished the rest of the water, crushed the plastic bottle, and tossed it into the nearby trash can. I pulled out my pager and saw a message from my dad telling me to come home early for dinner. I put away my pager and walked toward the school gate. As I passed by the playground, I saw a group of new trainees lining up. The instructor shouted commands, and they turned in perfect unison. I glanced twice and remembered what I looked like on my first day of school. Back then, my heart felt so full, as if something was blocking it, and every corner was filled with grievance. But now, I feel transparent, able to wander freely with the gentle breeze, carefree and unbound. As I reached the school gate, the sun was just setting, painting the horizon a blazing orange-red. I paused for a moment at the entrance, looked up, and took in the sky, then head to the bus stop. Go home. The end. Story 2. When the kidnapper charged with a dagger, Shinyanshi expected me to rush forward recklessly and take the blow for him, just as I had in my previous life. He calmly held his beloved Xiao Suman, whispering reassurances to her, until the blade in the kidnapper's hand pierced his chest and the pain surged through him. Only then did Shinyanshi look up in disbelief toward where I stood. I remained motionless, locking eyes with him coldly, and as our gazes met, I curled my lips into a faint smile directed at him. Does it hurt? It probably does, but compared to the agony I endured in my past life, this is nothing. Shinyenshi, we have all the time in the world to settle this score. I was reborn on the very day my award-winning actor husband, Shinyenshi, moved his cherished first love, Xiao Suman, into our marital home. On this very day in my past life, I found out I was pregnant at the hospital and rushed home overjoyed, eager to share the wonderful news with Shinyenshi. Little did I expect to find an unwelcome guest, Xiao Suman, in the marital home I shared with Shinyenshi. With red, swollen eyes, Xiao Suman lay weak and fragile in Shinyenshi's arms, pouring out her sorrows. Yenshi, I truly had no choice back then. If I didn't leave you, my father would have cut off my mother's medical funds. For her sake, I had to give in. These past 5 years, there hasn't been a single moment when I haven't missed you. Shinyenshi gently raised his hand to wipe Xiao Suman's tears, his gaze holding an expression I had never seen before when he looked at her, so tender, so focused, so full of affection. In that instant, a crack formed in my heart. Finally, the two embracing in the living room, their eyes red from crying and sharing heartfelt confessions, noticed me standing at the doorway. Shinyenshi released Xiao Suman from his embrace and began explaining to me in a flustered manner. He said Xiao Suman was like a younger sister from his neighborhood, and her parents had helped him tremendously over the years. He explained that Xiao Suman had married the wrong man, her husband died, she fell ill, and she was still pregnant with nowhere to go. Out of respect for their past bond, he felt obligated to take her in. Shinyenshi wasn't discussing this with me, he was simply informing me. Since Xiao Suman was physically fragile during her pregnancy and needed daily sun exposure, Shinyenshi gave up our sun-facing master bedroom for her to live in. He attended to Xiao Suman's every need, personally cooking nutritious meals for her and accompanying her to hospital appointments for checkups, disregarding the risk of paparazzi spotting them. After paparazzi captured videos and photos of them at the hospital's obstetrics department, Shinyenshi publicly acknowledged Xiao Suman as his woman to protect her reputation. If Xiao Suman has become Shinyenshi's beloved, then what does that make me? The other half listed on the marriage certificate. Shinyenshi effortlessly distanced himself from me with just a few words, publicly claiming we were nothing more than friends and collaborators. In private, he'd brainwashed me with solemn vows that I was the only one he loved, insisting he only helped Xiao Suman out of pity. He promised to cut ties with Xiao Suman once she recovered and gave birth to their child. Yet Xiao Suman played the delicate, ailing innocent when Shin was around. While showing her true colors behind his back, she repeatedly provoked me, blatantly revealing her illicit relationship with Shinyenshi, and resorted to every possible means to frame and slander me. After Xiao Suman framed me by fabricating an incident where I caused her to miscarry and lose her uterus, Shinyenshi completely sided with her. He concluded that my jealousy had twisted my mind, leading me to employ every despicable method, and to prevent me and my unborn child from affecting Xiao Suman's mood. Despite my fierce objections, Shinyenshi sent me away to a remote small town to settle. I cried and protested, refusing to leave, but Shinyenshi threatened me with divorce and abandonment. In my past life, I regarded Shinyenshi as my very existence, terrified of divorce, terrified of being cast aside. In the end, I was helplessly sent to a remote town by Shinyenshi, waiting for him to come for me and our child. I waited and waited, through childbirth, through raising our child to 10 years old, until Shinyenshi finally took our child away. I ended up disabled after saving Shinyenshi, confined to a hospital for life, yet he never publicly acknowledged our relationship. During those agonizing days of paralysis in the hospital, Shinyenshi would initially visit me on the sly every now and then. Later, he used being busy as an excuse and never showed up again. In my past life, I was utterly foolish. Even in that state, I still clung to the delusion that Shinyenshi, being a celebrity, had his reasons, and that he truly cared for me, especially since we shared a child born of love. I clung desperately to this illusion of love, convinced that one day I'd rise again and return to Shinyenshi's side, until I saw Shinyenshi and Xiao Suman on television, attending events with our child, until I heard the child I suffered to bring into this world call Xiao Suman mom, until Xiao Suman came to see me at the hospital, standing venomously by my bed, looking down on me with contempt. Tang Yu, why aren't you dead yet? 5 years of this half-life, haven't you had enough? Do you have any idea how much Yancy, myself, and even the child you struggled to bring into this world all wish you were dead? Our lives would finally be peaceful if you were gone. Xiao Suman claimed she and Shinyenshi were once lovers, but she left him when he hit rock bottom, chasing after a wealthy marriage instead. She never imagined Shinyenshi would rise to become a superstar adored nationwide, nor that the wealthy heir she meticulously chose would end up bankrupt. She returned with one goal: to win back Shin Yanqi's heart. Xiao Suman claimed she was never pregnant in the first place, and all the rumors about her and Shin Yanqi were planted by hired sources she paid to leak the story. She smugly told me how she used a fake pregnancy and miscarriage to frame me, making Shin Yanqi lose faith in me. Even that kidnapping that left me paralyzed was her doing. She only meant to set me up, never expecting I'd be willing to risk my life for Shin Yanqi. Xiao Suman didn't even hesitate to let me witness her everyday interactions with Shin Yanqi. They were already entangled while I was still able to walk, lost in passionate embraces and intimate moments. Shin Yanqi held Xiao Suman tenderly and comforted her. "Suman, it's you I love. I've never forgotten you all these years. But Tang Yu has sacrificed so much for me and ended up in this state. I can't just abandon her. Please bear with this for a while. Tang Yu won't live much longer like this. Once she's gone, I'll marry you properly." I never imagined that Shin Yanqi, the man I loved so deeply, could be such a scumbag. Overwhelmed with rage and heartbreak, I coughed up blood and closed my eyes in bitter resignation. I never expected to get a second chance. Staring at the pregnancy test report in my hand, I was lost in a daze for quite some time. I endured so much suffering for the child in my womb, nearly bled to death giving birth to him, and when I became disabled, he was just as heartless as Shin Yanqi. Both of them only had Xiao Suman in their hearts. I reached out and touched my belly. "You ungrateful little beast, you won't be born in this lifetime. I'll send you to meet your maker early. Getting rid of this cursed pregnancy is absolutely necessary. I need to slowly recall what comes next. In my past life, I was deceived and betrayed by that wretched couple, and it led to my tragic death. In this life, I'll make sure they taste every ounce of the pain I suffered. The bastard in my womb must die, but not now. I'll make sure his death serves a purpose." After thinking it over for a while, I stepped back into the examination room. "Doctor, could you do me a favor?" Half an hour later, as I lay in the hospital bed within 4 drip, my phone rang. It was a call from Shin Yanqi. "Isn't Shin Yanqi busy comforting Xiao Suman? What made him find time to call me?" I ignored Shin Yanqi and let the phone keep ringing. A few minutes later, Shin Yanqi sent a text. "Where are you? Honey, come home quickly. I have something important to discuss." Whatever Shin Yanqi wants to talk about is definitely related to Xiao Suman. I had no interest in hearing his lies again, so I put my phone on silent and stayed at the hospital for 5 hours. It wasn't until 11 p.m. that I finally walked out of the hospital room. The hospital was quiet at night as I walked while checking the messages on my phone. During those hours my phone was silenced. Shin Yanqi called me 80 times and sent roughly 40 to 50 messages. In the 5 years we dated and 3 years we've been married, I've always responded to Shin Yanqi's messages instantly and picked up his calls immediately. I've never left him hanging like this before. This sudden change clearly shows how anxious Shin Yanqi must be right now. I slowly walked out of the hospital building and crossed the parking lot when I heard a car door swing open, followed by hurried footsteps approaching. Too, someone grabbed my arm and a stern voice sounded by my ear. "Tang Yu, why aren't you answering my calls or replying to my messages? Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" I turned to look at Shin Yanqi, masked and hatted. The agony and despair of my final moments made me want to rip off his face mask, sunglasses, and hat, then slap that handsome face of his over and over. I wanted to beat his face until it was swollen beyond recognition, but I managed to restrain myself in the end. Now isn't the right time. I have more important matters to attend to. Clutching my stomach, I pretended to lose my balance while deftly hooking my foot around Shin Yanqi's leg and giving it a sharp tug. Consumed by anger and focused solely on confronting me, Shin Yanqi never saw it coming. He lost his footing and stumbled forward. I quickly pulled my foot back and sidestepped, leaving Shin Yanqi to crash face first into the ground with a thud. As he fell, I threw myself down too, mercilessly swinging the bag in my hand straight toward his groin. A sharp cry of pain rang in my ears, and Shin Yanqi was clearly in agony. I scrambled up in a panic, not forgetting to tear off the mask and sunglasses from his face. Honey, are you okay? It's all my fault. I'm pregnant, and the doctor said the fetus isn't doing well. I needed to stay in the hospital for prenatal shots. I thought since this is our love's creation, I had to be extra careful and stayed at the hospital. I didn't mean to ignore your calls and messages. My phone died. While babbling my explanations and apologies, I reached out to help Shin Yanqi up, but in my fluster, I ended up stepping hard on his hand several times. His face turned beet red with pain as he snapped at me. Tang Yu, are you trying to get us killed? Hurry up and put my sunglasses and mask on. Do you want the paparazzi to capture this? Flustered, I helped Shinyanshi into the car. As we drove out of the parking lot, he groaned in agony, grimacing and complaining through the pain. I kept my head bowed, apologizing repeatedly, but my eyes remained fixed on the rearview mirror. My heart finally settled when I saw a figure emerge and pick up the pregnancy test I had deliberately dropped on the road. Back at the home I shared with Shinyanshi, Xiao Suman greeted us at the door with a sugary, affected voice the moment I pushed it open. Brother Yanshi, you're finally back. I was so scared being here all alone. Right in front of me, Xiao Suman threw herself into Shinyanshi's arms, clinging to him like an octopus while cooing and cuddling. I watched the scene coldly. Who is she? Why is she here? As soon as I finished speaking, Shinyanshi quickly pulled Xiao Suman away from her. Xiao Yu, this is Xiao Suman, the girl who grew up next door to me. Then he introduced me to Xiao Suman. This is Tang Yu, my wife. Xiao Suman looked rather displeased after being pulled away, glaring at me with an unfriendly expression. Brother Yanshi, when did you get married? How come I didn't know about this? Tang Yu and I had been married for 3 years, but we kept it private for various reasons, Shinyanshi explained with an ingratiating smile as he turned to me. Honey, Suman currently has nowhere else to go, so she'll be staying with us temporarily. I'm afraid we'll need to trouble you to look after her. Shinyanshi said the same thing to me in my past life, and I agreed without hesitation in this new life. I refused. Shinyanshi, I'm pregnant, and the doctor said there's a risk of threatened miscarriage. My priority right now is to rest and protect this pregnancy. I have no energy to take care of someone unrelated. My refusal made Shinyanshi's expression darken, and Xiao Suman immediately burst into tears. I knew I was just a burden. I shouldn't have come to you. Yanshi, I'll leave right now. She made as if to leave, but after just a couple of steps, she collapsed limply to the ground. Shinyanshi was startled and hastily scooped up the fainting Xiao Suman to administer first aid. This was Xiao Suman's go-to tactic from our past life. First the tears, then the tantrums, and finally the fainting act. Back then, I thought she was genuinely ill and always treated her with the utmost care. Now that I know she's faking it, I'm not letting her get away with it. So she likes playing dead. I'll show her what happens to people who pretend to faint. I stomped on Xiao Suman's hand and ground my heel into it, watching her face contort in agony with 10 fingers connected to the heart. The pain was excruciating, but she refused to ruin her act and kept pretending to be unconscious. I released her hand and started pinching her philtrum instead. Even when the spot turned purple from the pressure, she still kept up the charade. Shinyanshi was genuinely frantic, yelling at me, stop choking her, call an ambulance now. I let go of Xiao Suman and made a show of reaching for my phone, my gaze catching on the fruit knife resting on the nearby coffee table. A spur-of-the-moment plan began forming in my mind. My foot slipped, sending me stumbling backward, and as I fell, I swung my leg up hard, kicking Shinyanshi square in the face as he crouched over Xiao Suman in concern. Shinyanshi let out a pained cry as my kick landed squarely on his nose. Blood gushed out, and in agony, he released his grip to clutch his nose. In the blink of an eye, while he was still clutching his nose, I snatched the fruit knife and brought it down hard on the finger of Xiao Suman, who was feigning unconsciousness. Blood splattered as a segment of finger went flying. Xiao Suman let out a sharp scream, and her eyes snapped open. I crashed heavily to the ground, clutching my stomach with both hands. My face turned deathly pale as I screamed, it hurts, my stomach, the pain is unbearable, my baby. 3. Xiao Suman, Shinyanshi, and I were all rushed to the emergency room. I'd kicked Shin's nose crooked, and Xiao had broken a finger. As for me, I was taken straight to the operating room. I deliberately slammed my abdomen against the coffee table as I fell. I thought this unwanted pregnancy would end in miscarriage, but the fetus proved resilient and didn't abort. Even without a natural miscarriage, I couldn't keep it. I paid the doctor to terminate the pregnancy. Rest is essential after an abortion procedure. Shinyanshi never once visited me during my hospital stay. His assistant came on his behalf and told me I'd accidentally broken his nose. He'd gone for reconstructive surgery and couldn't be seen in public. The assistant also mentioned Xiao Suman's severed finger was never recovered, leaving her permanently missing one digit. This outcome delighted me. Just a taste of what they deserve. The real reckoning is yet to come. I spent 2 weeks recovering in the hospital before being discharged, pouring out my pain and sorrow to Shinyanshi every day through messages and phone calls. Shinyanshi came to pick me up on the day I was discharged. He was completely covered up with sunglasses and a mask. The moment I got in the car, I threw myself into his arms and sobbed, Yanshi, it's all my fault. I couldn't protect our baby. Shinyanshi held me and comforted me, saying, Xiaoyu, we can have another child, just focus on recovering first. We will have a baby someday. I sneered inwardly, put on a show of crying for a moment, then asked about Shinyanshi's nose. Shinyanshi's plastic surgery was impeccably done. You couldn't tell his nose had ever been injured. That bastard really got off easy. When we got home, Xiao Suman came downstairs upon hearing the noise. Her eyes were filled with hatred. When she looked at me, my gaze fell on her missing finger, and while I felt a surge of satisfaction inside, I put on a remorseful expression and offered a perfunctory apology. Then, clutching my stomach and feigning pain, I was helped back to the bedroom by Shinyanshi to rest. I hadn't been lying down for long when Xiao Suman came in with a glass of milk. She slammed the door shut and approached my bed with venom in her eyes. Tang Yu, did you do it on purpose? You deliberately cut off my finger with that knife, didn't you? You've come back too, haven't you? Xiao Suman's words startled me, and I immediately denied it. What are you talking about? What do you mean by come back? Stop pretending. The you from the previous life wasn't like this. You were always so kind to me, but in this life, you dislike me, you hate me. I could see it from the start. So you intentionally severed my finger, didn't you? How could I possibly have done it on purpose? Miss Chiao, you're wronging me. Your finger was just an accident. When I saw you faint, I panicked and tripped in my haste. I lost my own child because of it, and I ended up hurting both you and Yanqi. I'm so wretched. Please forgive me, Miss Chiao. I truly didn't mean for any of this to happen. Xiao Suman glared at me with resentment, trying to detect any hint of abnormality on my face, but to her disappointment, she found none. I was surprised that Xiao Suman had also returned. It seems I need to be extra cautious now. However, Xiao Suman's return actually allows me to advance my plans further. Her target is Shinyanshi. Knowing how things will unfold, Xiao Suman will undoubtedly go to even greater lengths than in her previous life to drive me away, but I'll be fully prepared, waiting for her. When Shinyanshi entered the bedroom that evening, I tearfully told him, Yanqi, is Miss Jiao's condition very serious? Does she have persecutory delusions? She brought me milk today and said some truly bizarre things to me. Shinyanshi was taken aback. What did she say? She claimed I hate her, and that I deliberately broke her finger. I sobbed. I really didn't mean to. How could I possibly hold a grudge against someone I've never even met? Susan does tend to be a bit extreme, given her pregnancy and depression. It's no surprise she's overthinking things. She told me before you returned that she believed you were deliberately trying to harm her. I tried reasoning with her multiple times, but she still clings to that belief. What do we do now? Will she always think I'm out to get her? Most likely. Is she going to target me? Yanqi, you have to believe me. I love you so much. I can't bear to lose you. He knows exactly how much I love Shinyanshi. I've always stayed behind the scenes for him, back when he was a nobody. I even drank until I vomited blood just to get him a role even after he became successful. I never asked him for anything and always remained in the background when he said we should keep our marriage private. I stayed hidden while watching him fuel dating rumors with others, swallowing every bitter pill in silence. Shinyanshi's gaze softened with tenderness, as if recalling all I had done for him. Tang Yu, my dear, I'll treat you right. Once you've recovered, we can try for another child. I feigned emotion and hugged him tightly. Darling, I'll do whatever you say, but I'm worried. What are you worried about? I'm worried about Miss Chiao. She must be truly unwell. She actually told me you have feelings for her and claimed you're completely devoted to her. Shinyanshi's expression shifted. What else did she say to you? I pretended not to notice his change in demeanor and sighed. She called me the other woman, insisted you two belong together, and said you're deeply in love with her. I sighed again. Miss Chiao might be beyond help at this point. I'm genuinely concerned she could snap and say something reckless in public, with your career on the rise. And all those contracts you've signed. Any scandal would be disastrous to explain. Shinyanshi has always maintained a public image of being single, which has landed him numerous endorsement deals. Naturally, he wouldn't want to be photographed and risk breaching contracts that could cost him millions compared to his career prospects and financial gains. Xiao Suman simply wasn't that important. Shinyanshi took my advice. I understand what you're saying. It really isn't appropriate for Suman to keep living with us. I'll have my assistant find her a place so she can move out. Thanks to my reminder, Shinyanshi had a serious conversation with Xiao Suman the next morning. I tiptoed to the study door and clearly heard Xiao Suman sobbing from inside. I'm not leaving. You promised to take care of me for life. You gave me your word. If I go out like this, I'll die. Suman, I can still look after you even if you move out. Be reasonable, I won't move. Brother Yanchi, did Tangyu put you up to this? Is it because she can't stand me that you're kicking me out? I'm telling you, I really lived through a past life. I'm not lying. I'm absolutely certain Tangyu has returned. After how we treated her in our previous life, she hates both of us. She won't let either of us off easily. Impossible. If what you're saying is true, and Tangyu has also been reborn like you, why hasn't she taken action against us after how we treated her in our previous lives? She already has. Your broken nose and my missing finger, that's her revenge. No way, these are just accidents. If Tangyu really wanted revenge, she wouldn't resort to such trivial acts. She could easily ruin me completely by exposing the secrets she holds against me, plunging me into eternal damnation, yet she hasn't done that. Shinyenshi lowered his voice. I've observed Tangyu closely. She's in agony, filled with self-blame and utterly fragile. The miscarriage happened because of you. If you hadn't caused such a scene, the child between Tangyu and I wouldn't have been lost. It's all your fault. You'd better reflect on this seriously, or don't blame me for what happens next. I gave a wry smile and turned away quietly, for since they've laid all the cards on the table, this makes things even easier. Shinyenshi spent 2 hours in the study trying to console Chiao Suman, who cried and made a scene the entire time. Eventually, with no other options left, Shin made an excuse about needing to film and left. Only Chiao Suman and I remained at home, with no outsiders around. She glared at me with pure venom in her eyes. You bitch, Brother Yenchi is making me move out. Are you happy now? I have no idea what you're talking about. Yenchi is sending you away for the sake of his future. Besides, a single woman like you, heavily pregnant, living in someone else's house, it's just not appropriate, is it? Yenchi is just your childhood friend, not your husband. He has no obligation to take care of you. Furious at my words, Chiao Suman lunged at me to hit me. You bitch, I was faking my illness on purpose. I was deliberately trying to steal Yenchi away, and today I'm going to frame you for it. While Chiao Suman was cursing at me, I turned on my phone, dialed Shin Yenchi's number, and jumped up to dodge her. Unaware of anything else, Chiao Suman chased after me, hurling obscenities and curses. I was forced to run upstairs, and she followed right behind me on the second floor. She cornered me and lunged, shouting, "You bitch, drop dead, today's the day you die." As Chiao Suman lunged at me, I deliberately let out a blood-curdling cry for help. Yenchi, help, Miss Chiao is having an episode. She's gone mad. She's trying to kill me. After shrieking those words, I hurled the phone in my hand, sending it skittering across the floor. A cold smirk twisted my lips as I lunged forward to meet Chiao Suman's frenzied assault. Shin Yenchi rushed back immediately after receiving my desperate call for help. Pushing open the villa door, he was stunned by the gruesome scene before his eyes. Both Chiao Suman and I lay on the ground, our bodies drenched in blood. Chiao Suman and I were rushed to the hospital again after we both fell from the upper floor. I ended up with a broken arm, but Chiao Suman had it worse. As she fell, she landed right on a decorative vase downstairs. The lower half of my body was shredded to a bloody pulp by shards of glass and porcelain. No one knew I'd orchestrated this. I deliberately kept the line open so Chiao Suman would berate me. Every filthy word she uttered reached Shin Yenchi's ears. While the villa's surveillance system happened to be disabled, the only witness was my call to Shin Yenchi documenting Chiao Suman's psychotic episode. I pretended to panic and dropped my phone as Chiao Suman lunged at me. Then as she charged again, I grabbed her and jumped from the second floor. Chiao Suman became my human cushion and was knocked unconscious on impact. While she was out cold, I brutally beat her abdomen with a baseball bat. After watching the blood gush out from beneath her, I smashed the vase and glass, then packed Chiao Suman's lower body with porcelain shards and broken glass. In our past life, she falsely accused me of causing her miscarriage, losing the child, and having her uterus removed. This time, let's make it all come true. Satisfied with my handiwork, I smeared myself with Chiao Suman's blood, deliberately injured my own arm, and lay down beside her pretending to be unconscious. When I woke up, news about the accident at the villa of popular actor Shin Yenchi was already everywhere. Shin Yenchi is at the peak of his career, so you can imagine how much attention this news has generated. Social media platforms were overwhelmed as netizens dug into the details of the Shin Yenchi villa incident. The digging revealed something shocking. 2 women were injured. I'm already a familiar face to the public. No deep digging required, since I've always been known as Shin Yenchi's staff member, but Chiao Suman is a different story. Internet sleuths uncovered that she's Shin Yenchi's first love. The online detectives left no stone unturned, digging up every detail about Shin Yanqi and Xiao Suman's school romance. They even dug up that Xiao Suman is pregnant and pointed directly to Shin Yanqi as the father. This scandal erupted a full 3 months earlier than in the previous life. In her past life, Xiao Suman faked a pregnancy, had Shin Yanqi accompany her to a prenatal checkup, hired paparazzi to stage the scene, and forced him to acknowledge their relationship. The tactics differ between this life and the last, but they're essentially cut from the same cloth. Shin Yanqi never anticipated things would spiral out of control like this, yet his decision remained unchanged from his previous life. After 3 days of trending non-stop on hot searches, Shin Yanqi released a statement through his agency, publicly acknowledging his relationship with Xiao Suman. He confessed that Xiao Suman was his first love, the one person he could never let go of in his heart. So they got together after reuniting. He had originally planned to make it official later, but now had to announce it ahead of schedule. Shin Yanqi only called me after he had acknowledged Xiao Suman's status. His explanation was the same as in our past life. He owed a debt of gratitude to Xiao Suman's parents and felt compelled to repay their kindness. Additionally, Xiao Suman is now severely injured, having undergone a hysterectomy, and has suffered profound physical and psychological trauma. She's in a terrible state and can't handle any more stress. To prevent her from doing something drastic, he has no choice but to placate her for the time being. Shin Yanqi was certain I loved him too much to make a scene, and true to his expectations, I obediently agreed to his demands. Darling, I'll do whatever you say. Please take good care of Miss Xiao, even though she tried to harm me. I forgive her since she's ill and couldn't help herself. Shin Yanqi was delighted by my compliance and offered a few comforting words before ending the call. Shin Yanqi's long-maintained bachelor persona was shattered, with online reactions being mixed. His agency poured a fortune into hiring internet trolls to glorify Shin Yanqi and Xiao Suman's love story across all platforms. They crafted an image of star-crossed lovers torn apart by circumstances, yet forever longing for each other in their hearts. Years later, a chance encounter reignited their passion, making it inevitable for them to reunite. This fairy tale romance brainwashed countless devoted fans, who soon began celebrating Shen and Xiao's epic love story. Someone even wrote a script with Shin Yanqi in mind for the lead role. Shin Yanqi's career wasn't hindered in the slightest by his public relationship. In fact, his star shone even brighter. He went on to sign numerous endorsement deals and several film and television production contracts. Riding this wave of success, Shin Yanqi's rising tide lifted all boats, even Xiao Suman basked in the reflected glory. Xiao Suman transitioned from an ordinary person to a celebrity, just like in a past life, and partnered with Shin Yanqi to play lovers. On the day their romance film was announced to start filming, a video of Shin Yanqi picking me up from the hospital that night was suddenly sent to his phone. The paparazzi who filmed the video asked Shin Yanqi, "If Xiao Suman is your girlfriend, and you two were first loves with an unforgettable past, deeply in love, then what am I?" Tang you. What the paparazzi sent to Shin Yanqi was the video of me struggling with him at the hospital that day, and they also released my pregnancy test results. 5. This turn of events completely blindsided Shin Yanqi and Xiao Suman. The paparazzi's equipment was top-notch, capturing every detail of Shin Yanqi's expression, sunglasses and mask torn off, lying on the ground, leaving no room for denial. The paparazzi also released the conversation between Shin Yanqi and me from that moment. In the video, you can clearly hear me calling Shin Yanqi husband, and discussing the instability of my pregnancy with him. The video had Shin Yanqi pacing like an ant on a hot griddle, fully aware of the devastating impact its release would cause. He proactively reached out to the paparazzi to buy their silence. The paparazzi demanded 1 billion yuan to keep quiet. Having been a top-tier celebrity for years, Shin Yanqi had indeed amassed considerable wealth. He could come up with 1 billion, but no one in their right mind would spend that much just to buy someone's silence. Shin Yanqi spent days agonizing over it, barely eating, hardly sleeping, so stressed out that his eyes were bloodshot. What really sent Shin Yanqi into a panic was when the paparazzi leaked our marriage certificate. When Shin Yanqi received the photo of our marriage certificate, he was completely dumbfounded. He's starting to suspect me. Shin Yanqi came to see me, studying me with a scrutinizing gaze for a long moment before taking my hand and sitting down with me. "Xiaoyu, I've kept our marriage license completely under wraps. How did the paparazzi get photos of our marriage certificate?" "Well, who else could have given it to them?" I scoffed inwardly, but feigned panic on my face. "How could that be? I've kept our marriage license completely under wraps. I haven't told a soul, but the paparazzi already got hold of our marriage certificate. I'd never leak it myself, which only leaves you." I frantically denied it. It wasn't me, darling, I swear it wasn't. Why would I ever expose our relationship, Xiaoyu? Is this because you're jealous? Are you doing this because you're jealous of me and Qiao Suman? Darling, I admit I'm jealous about what happened between you and Miss Qiao, but I love you so much. How could I ever leak it and ruin you? Of course Shen Yanqi knew I loved him, he partly believed me, but not entirely. If not you, then who? I don't know, I really don't. I tugged at my hair in frustration. Who on earth could it be? Could it be that paparazzi, after filming us at the hospital, went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and used some trick to get the information? Shen Yanqi fell silent. This explanation was completely plausible. Darling, it's all my fault. If only my phone hadn't died that night, you wouldn't have worried and come looking for me, then the paparazzi wouldn't have caught us together. I'm the one to blame. To dispel Shen Yanqi's suspicions, I deliberately took all the blame upon myself, but Shen Yanqi wasn't so easily fooled. He kept watching me cautiously, half convinced and half doubting. After all these years with Shen Yanqi, I know every single expression and glance of his like the back of my hand, so Shen Yanqi is already suspicious of me. I can't blow my cover now, not when I haven't managed to take down that wretched pair, Shen Yanqi and Qiao Suman. I put on an act and shed a few crocodile tears. Darling, I have no idea how this happened, it's all my carelessness that got us photographed. I'm the one to blame. To keep you from being hounded and threatened by paparazzi, let's get a divorce. Divorce? Shen Yanqi was taken aback. I nodded through tears. Yes, let's get divorced. We'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau first to finalize the divorce. That way, even if the paparazzi expose us, we can get our stories straight and minimize the fallout. Shen Yanqi frowned. Paparazzi have insatiable appetites. They're after money. If I can't meet their demands, they'll likely expose us anyway. When that happens, not only will my career be over, but I'll also face contract termination penalties. I just signed all those endorsements and film projects. The compensation fees would be astronomical. He pulled out his phone and calculated for a long moment. The penalties would be no less than $1 billion. I sneered inwardly. I was the one who hired the paparazzi. While he was basking in the glory of maintaining his image with Qiao Suman, I had already calculated the compensation he would eventually have to pay. That's precisely why I instructed the paparazzi to demand $1 billion as hush money. Having been by Shen Yanqi's side for so many years, I knew perfectly well that $1 billion was the maximum amount he could currently lay his hands on. Once he pays that sum to the paparazzi, every last cent of that billion will end up in my pocket. My first priority is to secure that $1 billion. Then make Shen Yanqi pay for what he's done. If Shen Yanqi refuses to pay the paparazzi, I have another way to make him hand over the money willingly. I wiped away non-existent tears from the corner of my eye. So what do we do now? If we meet the paparazzi's demands, you'll have to pay $1 billion hush money. If we refuse, you'll still face massive breach of contract penalties. Either way we're talking about huge sums. Is there really no third option? Shen Yanqi fell silent, and I knew he was weighing his options. Having spent years navigating the entertainment industry, Shen Yanqi has witnessed countless celebrities transferring their assets. I'm certain he'd consider moving his assets. With both parents deceased, I'm now Shen Yanqi's only family, though Qiao Suman still holds a special place in his heart. 6. I'm betting Shen Yanqi won't leave his fortune to Qiao Suman, not after she abandoned him back then. It's unwise to hand over your family fortune to a woman who once abandoned you. Shen Yanqi will think of me eventually. I've loved him so deeply, stayed behind the scenes for him all these years, and would do anything for him right now. I'm Shen Yanqi's only option. After a long period of contemplation, Shen Yanqi finally spoke. All right then, I'll transfer all my assets to you. If things go south, take the money and go abroad first. I'll join you later. This was the best solution Shen Yanqi could come up with at the moment. Divorce me and give all his money to his ex-wife. I love him too much to ever betray him. And if he loses his status and ends up penniless from lawsuits, he knows he can always come to me. The fish has taken the bait, and Shen Yanqi finally settled the divorce terms with me. He left with nothing, and all the assets went to me. We signed the divorce agreement that very night and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau the next day to finalize the divorce. All the properties under Shen Yanqi's name were transferred to me, but he continued to live in the villa that now belongs to me. The paparazzi were still waiting for Shen Yanqi to scrape together the hush money, but he gave them a vague timeline. 1 month later. During that month, he stopped taking endorsement deals and refused to sign on for any new shows. Instead, he and Qiao Suman went live streaming to cash in quick, drawing attention wherever they went. They made a decent chunk of change in that month, and just like that, the cooling-off period for my divorce from Shinyanshi was over. We quietly went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize our divorce the moment I held the divorce certificate. A wave of relief washed over me. I knew, without a doubt, that I had won completely. From this moment on. The hunt begins. I will make sure Shinyanshi and Xiao Suman suffer a fate worse than death. Before I could even make a move, Xiao Suman over there was already chomping at the bit. What Xiao Suman really wanted was to become a massive star. Just like in her previous life, she noticed that Shinyanshi had only been dragging her around to cash grab gigs lately, with no intention whatsoever of getting her into acting. Xiao Suman grew anxious and took the initiative to bring up the topic of acting with Shinyanshi. Shinyanshi, with a guilty conscience, turned down Xiao Suman's request to act. Xiao Suman, upset, got into an argument with Shinyanshi. Irritated, Shin didn't indulge her and refused to back down. Furious, Xiao Suman resorted to her old trick of pretending to faint. Seeing Xiao Suman collapse, a panicked Shinyanshi rushed her to the hospital. En route, their car was struck head on by a speeding truck. Shinyanshi was rushed to the emergency room, critically injured and unconscious after protecting Xiao Suman. The doctors said his trauma was severe, and he might never wake up. Meanwhile, Xiao Suman lay in the operating room with multiple fractures, barely clinging to life. I got the news and rushed to the hospital with Shinyanshi's assistant. Standing outside the operating room, I thought with a blank expression, Shinyanshi really has it easy. If he were to die right now, all his troubles would simply vanish. Then what's the point of my revenge? We can't let Shinyanshi off that easily. I hope the doctors manage to save him. Ideally, he'd be saved, but left paralyzed in bed with broken limbs. Let him truly save her life. Shinyanshi was in emergency surgery for over 10 hours, during which doctors issued 4 critical condition notices. I got fed up with waiting and took off. The next morning, Shinyanshi's assistant called me. Miss Tang, Brother Shin is awake. He's insisting on seeing you. Shinyanshi's awakening could truly be called a medical miracle. After all, during his emergency treatment, the doctors had said that even if someone in his condition woke up, they'd likely be bedridden for at least a year. Not only had Shinyanshi regained consciousness, but he was well enough to receive visitors the very next day. Feeling perplexed, I kept pondering the reason as I went to see Shinyanshi. 7. Approaching the hospital room, I deliberately softened my footsteps, only to hear a voice I detested coming from inside. Just as I was about to push the door open, Xiao Suman's voice trembled with emotion. Yanshi, it's such a relief you're awake. I never imagined we'd both get a second chance. Yanshi, fate is on our side, let's be together. Shinyanshi's voice sounded just as it always had. Where's Tangyu? She went back last night. You were fighting for your life in the emergency room, and she couldn't even be bothered to stay by your side. Tangyu is pure evil. I suspect she was behind the car accident. How could that be? She loves me too much to ever do something like that to me. Why not? You came back, didn't you? If that's the case, you must remember what we did to Tangyu in our past life. We abandoned her, disabled and helpless, in a nursing home to fend for herself. If we managed to return, Tangyu definitely could have too. If she's back, she must despise us with every fiber of her being. With that much hatred, she'd stop at nothing to get rid of us, wouldn't she? Shinyanshi gasped. Oh no, if that's the case then we're in trouble. I divorced Tangyu and gave her all my assets. If she's been reborn like us, she'll come after me any moment now. Have you lost your mind? Yanshi, how could you be so foolish? Xiao Suman was heartbroken upon hearing Shinyanshi had transferred all his wealth to her. What do we do now? What's going to happen to Yanshi? There's only one way. Shinyanshi's voice was ice cold. I'll test the waters with Tangyu first. If she's back, things will get complicated. If she's still away, we can proceed like we did in our previous life. I didn't wait to hear more and turned to leave. In my past life, I'd always believed only Xiao Suman was scheming against me, and Shinyanshi knew nothing about it. To my surprise, after being reborn, Shinyanshi actually brought up how I took a knife for him in our past life, clearly trying to manipulate me. You scumbag and that wretched woman, just you wait. I won't let either of you get away with this. I swear I'll make sure you both end up with nowhere to be buried. When I returned to Shinyanshi's hospital room, I brought a thermos of nourishing soup I'd prepared. My eyes were swollen like steamed buns after rubbing them with scallion water. When I saw Shinyanshi, tears streamed down my face, and he held me while crying too. We were both putting on an act. Shinyanshi kept testing me, but I handled it flawlessly. In the end, Shinyanshi took the initiative and asked me to sign a property transfer agreement. He's the Beneficiary. I agreed without hesitation and immediately called my lawyer to come over. Seeing I didn't put up any resistance, a look of guilt flashed in Shinyanchi's eyes. I signed the asset transfer agreement with both the lawyer and Shinyanchi as witnesses. The document states that in the event of my death or incapacitation, all my assets will be transferred to Shinyanchi. The agreement was made in triplicate. Shinyanchi visibly relaxed after receiving my signed copy. He didn't stay long at the hospital, requesting discharge after just 3 days. Pretending to know nothing, I brought Shinyanchi back home. On the 4th day back home, I was kidnapped along with Chao Suman. The kidnappers tied us up in an abandoned warehouse in the remote mountains, demanding a ransom of 100 million. Shinyanchi came up the mountain with the ransom to rescue us. Exactly the same scenario as in our previous life. After handing over the ransom, the kidnappers did exactly what they had done in our past life. Hostage executed. As the kidnapper lunged at us with a gleaming knife, grinning viciously, I saw with perfect clarity how Shinyanchi held Chao Suman, comforting her with utter nonchalance. He was waiting for me to save him and take the blade for him, just like I did in our previous life. Too bad for him, it wasn't until the knife tip pierced through his abdomen, stabbing him clean through, that he finally snapped to his senses and looked at me. I stood not far from Shinyanchi, watching him quietly. I watched as blood spurted from Shinyanchi's body, splattering everywhere. I heard Shinyanchi let out agonizing screams from the pain, and saw Chao Suman, her face covered in blood, push him aside to try to escape. I saw the kidnapper grab Chao Suman and thrust the blade into her eye. The moment the kidnapper drew the blade, Chao Suman's wide eyes, dark pupils stark against the whites, locked onto the glinting point of the knife. I saw Shinyanchi writhing on the ground, clutching his stomach in agony. The wound was too large for his hands to cover, and I watched in horror as his intestines spilled out. I watched helplessly as the kidnapper kept slashing at Shinyanchi and Chao Suman. I saw their tendons being severed in their wrists and ankles, and then the wail of police sirens pierced the air from outside. The kidnappers scattered and fled, and I took the opportunity to drop to the ground. Shinyanchi and Chao Suman were left permanently disabled, and their plot to hire assassins to kill me was uncovered by the police. The scandal of Shinyanchi's affair with Chao Suman and their conspiracy to murder his ex-wife dominated the front pages of major news outlets. Not only were they disabled, but they also faced criminal charges that could land them in prison. 3 months later, I visited Shinyanchi in prison. He was slumped in a wheelchair, staring blankly out the barred window when he noticed me enter. Shinyanchi tried to move, but it was futile. The kidnappers had severed the tendons in his arms and legs. He would never be able to use his hands or walk again. I smiled at him warmly. Long time no see, Shinyanchi, you came back, and then orchestrated all of this. I don't understand what you're talking about. Weren't the kidnappers hired by you and Chao Suman, you vicious woman? Shinyanchi was so provoked by my words that he nearly jumped up. If only he could move. I smiled at him. I'm nowhere near as good as you, Shinyanchi. I've been waiting for an opportunity, and I never expected you to deliver yourself right to me. I just added another 50 million to the hitmen you hired, and the outcome has been quite satisfying. Shinyanchi let out a hoarse curse, but I remained unmoved. This is just the first step. I consulted a lawyer, and they said someone like you wouldn't end up in prison, so I've decided to forgive you and not hold you accountable. In fact, I've kindly arranged a place where you and Chao Suman can stay. I hope you both enjoy the rest of your lives there. After all, I went through the trouble of spending a fortune to find that place and hire caregivers. Shinyanchi and Chao Suman should at least get to enjoy their remaining years in comfort. They'll spend the rest of their lives in damp darkness, cursed at, beaten, eating moldy food, living like sewer rats. Meanwhile, I'll travel the world in style with my $1 billion, maybe even spice things up with a dozen handsome young men. From now on, my life and Shinyanchi and Chao Suman's will be worlds apart. They're doomed to suffer like I did in my past life, while I'm free, rich, and have all the time in the world to enjoy this life to the fullest. Watch them suffer and die a slow, painful death. Story 2. Chingze has disliked me since we were young. He said that I would only bring him bad luck. Later, he injured his hand while rescuing me from a big fire. He could no longer hold a scalpel. With red eyes, he said, I will never let you go for the rest of my life. In this new life, I decided to stay away from him obediently until later. I saw him with scarlet eyes at the corners, doing unspeakable things while holding my photo. Oh no, he, the unreachable flower on the high mountain, has gone dark. 1. Student MOU. For this volleyball game, who do you want to team up with? Student MOU. Someone called me. I suddenly came to my senses and felt dazed, looking at everything familiar yet strange in front of me. After the car accident, Did I travel through time? Who else could it be? Of course, she'll cling to the thigh of her childhood sweetheart. Everyone knows that the two of them are like conjoined twins. Wherever Chingze goes, Mou follows. Someone made fun of me. This was a tennis class in college. My classmates looked at me with ambiguous eyes, but they didn't know that I shivered when I heard the name Chingze. In my previous life, Chingze rushed into the fire to save me and injured his hand. He could no longer hold a scalpel. The night after he came out of the operating room, I dared to go and see him. At that time, he was lying on the hospital bed. His eyes were obviously red from crying, extremely red. He gritted his teeth and said to me, "Mou, I will never let you go for the rest of my life." The guilt and fear of having done something wrong almost engulfed me. Chingze's resentful face also lingered in my mind and became a nightmare at the moment. He was standing beside the teacher, choosing a tennis racket. After hearing the commotion, he just gave me a faint glance and then, as if resigned to his fate, started to pick the second one. The lights in the indoor tennis court shone on his originally pale and cold skin, making it dazzlingly white. Outstanding is probably the word to describe someone like him. He has been good-looking since childhood, had excellent grades, and was also talented in sports. When he grew up, he realized his dream and became a doctor at a young age. He was already an attending physician in a top tertiary hospital in the capital, with a medical family background. He should have had a smooth and successful career if it weren't for me. After the teacher called me for the third time impatiently, I almost randomly pointed with a sense of urgency. The surroundings fell silent. Chingze's movement of bending over to choose the racket also visibly froze. Even the teacher raised his eyebrows in surprise. The guy I pointed at looked behind him. After finding no one there, his pupils dilated in shock. He pointed at himself and mouthed silently, "Me." The whole class burst into laughter at this sight. Everyone knew that my tennis skills were extremely poor. Every time I teamed up with Chingze, even a sports master like him would be dragged down by me and lose the game. The teacher asked Chingze jokingly, "Chingze, do you have any objections?" It was as if he was asking a family member. Chingze walked over. When he passed by me, his eyebrows and eyes were cold. "Whatever she wants. I really hope she won't hold me back, too." My throat choked up, and it took me a long time to suppress the uncomfortable feeling. Chingze has disliked me since we were young. He said that I would only bring him bad luck. In fact, he was right. Probably no one in the whole world likes me. I was born as a person with extremely ominous horoscopes, a harbinger of bad luck. When I was 8 years old, my parents died in a plane crash. My grandmother was heartbroken and said that I had caused their deaths, so she refused to adopt me. After raising me for 5 years, my grandmother also passed away due to a heart attack. My relatives were coveting the huge inheritance left to me by my parents, yet they also feared my horoscopes. Only the neighbor's family, who had watched me grow up, took pity on me and took me in. They said with determination, "The fortune teller said that Xiaoze's horoscope is extremely strong. You can just test it for him." Since then, I became a burden to the Qing family. Naturally, I also stuck to Chingze. He was the one they said had an extremely strong horoscope until he was 9 years old. He broke his leg while trying to help me save a kitten from a tree at the age of 12. Because he passed me the answers, he was punished to make a self-criticism in front of the whole school with me. When he was 15, Chingze agreed to my unreasonable request and accompanied me to set off fireworks in the yard. I lost control, and a spark landed on his clothes. Soon, it caught fire. We were in a hurry to put out the fire, but on his arm, an ugly scar was left forever. He finally couldn't hold it in anymore and shouted at me angrily, "Mou, can you stay away from me? Since you were a child, you've only brought me bad luck." At that time, my desire for friends was much stronger than my self-esteem. I still followed him like a little tail that couldn't be shaken off. But what about Chingze's future? Or even his life? I shouldn't be selfish. "Chingze, don't worry. This time, I will definitely stay far away from you and will never hold you back again." 3. Without my dragging him down, Chingze and his new partner really had a tacit understanding. His gaze was firm, and his face was so serious that it was intimidating. He became stronger and stronger as the game went on. The score was already overwhelming, and there was no suspense about the outcome. However, I sprained my ankle when catching the last ball. A loud whistle blew. "Stop." The PE teacher shouted loudly, "Someone come and carry Mou to the infirmary." Through the net, I saw from a distance that Chingze immediately dropped his racket and was about to run over. Chingze is a good person, although he has a cold exterior but a warm heart. Although he dislikes me, he also remembers his promise to his parents and will protect and take care of me as if I were his own sister. But I can't cause him trouble anymore. Enduring the pain, I bared my teeth and smiled at my partner, classmate. Could you take me to the infirmary, please? I reached out and pulled on the leg of his sports pants, then I showed my canine teeth and threatened in a low voice, otherwise, I'll pull your pants off. The boy who had been hesitating quickly picked me up and rushed straight to the infirmary. I was in so much pain that I was almost fainting, my head tilted, and just before I closed my eyes, I saw Chingzai's direction. He stood there, his face stiff, and didn't take another step forward. Chingzai, see, I didn't trouble you this time either, for I was transferred from the infirmary to the provincial hospital near the school. That kind-hearted guy accompanied me all the way. I asked gratefully, classmate, what's your name? He showed an expression as if the sky was falling. You chose me as your partner and asked me to send you to the hospital. People who don't know might think you have a crush on me, yet you don't even know my name. I scratched my head in embarrassment. He said angrily, Bai Yang, could I trouble you with one more thing? Could you bring me food? For a few days, he jumped up and down in anger. I'm warning you, don't push your luck, I'll pay you. He shook his head. One should not be swayed by poverty. I stretched out 2 fingers, 200 yuan a day, and the meal money is separate. Your humble servant is here, miss, you can rest assured and recover. I'll take care of everything. Thanks to Bai Yang. I had already started eating before Chingzai came to bring me food. He stood at the door holding a lunchbox, frowning as he watched me eating until oil was dripping from the corner of my mouth. He said stiffly, didn't the doctor tell you that you shouldn't eat greasy food during your recuperation? Bai Yang's eyes lit up and he stood up suddenly. I'll immediately prepare some light food for Miss Student Mou. He has such great professional ethics. I gave an approving look at Bai Yang's departing back, but I didn't know that this look took on a different meaning in Chingzai's eyes. His hand holding the lunchbox tightened a bit. What's wrong with you today? I turned my head to look at him in confusion. What's wrong with what? His Adam's apple moved, and it took him a long time to reluctantly say, in your previous tennis classes, didn't you always team up with me? I lowered my head and started eating, mumbling, didn't you always think my playing was bad? I didn't. Anyway, I also want to make some new friends. New friends. His eyes narrowed slightly as he repeated the words one by one. Yeah, didn't you tell me since I was a child that I shouldn't just follow you and that I should make more other friends? Also, you don't need to bring me food anymore. Bai Yang will bring it to me. After a long time, he sneered, why didn't I see you being so obedient before? Fine, I'll have an easy time. I can have a few days of peaceful days without anyone bothering me. He turned around and left without hesitation. I held back the sourness in my eyes and comforted myself. Very good. Mou, you have taken the second step. You have been able to refuse Chingzai's care. When Bai Yang came back, half of the soup in the takeout bowl had spilled. He chattered and complained, is that Chingzai crazy? The road is so wide. Why did he bump into me? You're familiar with him. Was his cerebellum underdeveloped when he was a child? Does he always sway when he walks? Hey, wait a minute, miss, why are you crying? It was the saltiness of the food that made me cry. 5. When I came to the classroom to attend class on crutches, I saw that the teacher, who had always disliked me, showed obvious relief in his eyes. Probably he thought I was strong in spirit despite my physical disability. In fact, it was because Bai Yang told me that this class would cover the key points for the final exam. Chingzai sat in the first row as usual, his back straight, and he was looking at the blackboard seriously. His gaze didn't even fall on me once. The seat next to him was empty. In the past, I would definitely have sat over there with a playful smile. Then, under the teacher's disappointed gaze, I would have slept through the whole morning. But now, Bai Yang and I secretly huddled in the last row. Miss, didn't I tell you that I would draw the key points and lend them to you to copy later? Rely on him. I looked at him with disdain at the 2 big dark circles under his eyes because of staying up all night playing games. Forget it. In class, the 2 of us were just about to write quickly, but the teacher just casually pointed out a few places and then said calmly, except for the few places I just pointed out, everything else is key. I flipped through this brick-like textbook with more than 600 pages. I stared at Bai Yang. It really felt like the sky had fallen. As soon as the class bell rang, I angrily picked up my crutches and left. Where are you going? To find the department head to change my major. WOC, Miss is so heroic, I'll go with you. Before the 2 of us could take a step, a gloomy voice came from behind, you want to change your major? I felt a chill down my back. When I turned around, I saw Chingzai holding a notebook and looking at me with a gloomy face. Did he encourage you to do this? Bai Yang, may the heavens distinguish between the loyal and the treacherous. Looking at Chingzai's clenched fist, I silently protected Bai Yang behind me. I want to change my major myself. I don't like this major. Chingze was stunned. Why? Didn't you say since you were a child that you admired Hua Tua and that you also wanted to study medicine to save lives when you grew up? He tilted his head and looked at me in confusion. I closed my eyes. I didn't dare to open them. People can't even empathize with their past selves. Who knows what nonsense I used to come up with just to be able to stay by Chingze's side when I was a child. I said that when I was naive. Why do you still remember it? Anyway, I don't like this major, and I must change it. I was too guilty to look at his face. I turned around and pulled by Yang, ready to run. I only heard a disappointed and cold sentence from behind. MOU. It seems that I still don't know you well enough. Whatever you do, you're half-hearted. I sniffed my sour nose. Chingze, you still don't understand. I'm doing this for your own good. How dare I use your future as a sacrifice for my selfishness? Since that class, Chingze and I haven't said a word to each other. It has always been me who took the initiative to find Chingze. Since I didn't contact him, naturally, he wouldn't contact me either. Yang and I, however, established a deep friendship and we decided to transfer to the School of Liberal Arts together next semester. According to his words, the two of us are both warriors trapped in the cage of the School of Medicine because of love. When I wanted to ask him more about it, he refused to say more. 7. The tennis club proposed that after the final exam week, everyone go for a barbecue dinner together. We were all freshmen. Our enthusiasm for socializing was burning brightly. Both Chingze and I were members of the tennis club. At first, I joined the tennis club to improve my tennis skills, and then I pestered Chingze to join with me, but the courses in the School of Medicine were really too full, and I only came to the club a few times in total. Naturally, my tennis skills didn't improve. Chingze has always had little interest in this kind of gathering. He would rather stay in the laboratory as his follower. I would naturally sleep outside the laboratory and wait for him anyway. It's the same to sleep anywhere, right? So, the club president was a bit surprised when I signed up for this dinner, a rare guest. When I got there, I found that I wasn't the only rare guest. 8. The club president rented a villa with a lawn in the countryside. After having the barbecue and hot pot, everyone gathered around the campfire and played the game You Have Something I Don't. Chingze walked straight over and sat beside me. There were quiet jeers around, and people's eyes kept moving between the two of us. Did Chingze forget that we had a quarrel a few days ago? I moved to the side. He grabbed my arm and pulled me back, his tone displeased. What are you hiding from? Am I a plague god? I immediately lowered my head and pretended to be dead. The club president came out to smooth things over and asked the first question. After chuckling twice, he said cunningly, I was admitted without taking the exam. This immediately stirred up public anger. Showing off. Yuan Bo, what are you pretending for? You're a pretentious guy. Kick him out. Despite the commotion, except for the club president and Chingze, everyone else put down one finger. Chingze was also admitted without taking the exam. Moreover, he could have been admitted to an even better school. 2 top universities were competing for him, but I tried my best and still didn't get admitted. Later, when filling out the college entrance examination application, he directly took my application form and copied it. He has always been so calm and rational. University is not bad either. Its ranking is only second to those 2 universities, and its medical major is top-notch in the country. I turned my head and secretly looked at him, but I happened to meet his dark eyes, serious, focused, and also filled with resentment. I felt even more guilty. Chingze probably hates me a lot, right? Because of me, he gave up a better future. 9. The second question. It was the turn of a cute girl on the left side of the club president. Her cheeks were flushed, and she quickly glanced at the tall boy sitting opposite her. I have someone I like. Oh, everyone looked at the two of them with ambiguous eyes. The boy was so intrigued that his face was almost blushing. I stared at them, lost in thought. So, is a crush this obvious? In fact, my roommate Xiaofu once asked me if I liked Chingze since I followed him around every day. Do I like Chingze? When I was a child, the people I liked the most were my parents. Later, they died in a plane crash. After that, the person I liked the most was my grandmother, but she also left me soon. Since then, I no longer dared to like anyone, so I smiled and replied to her, I just regard Chingze as my brother. He's the only one who plays with me. After coming back to my senses, I silently put down one finger. I don't have someone I like, and I don't dare to have someone I like anymore. Chingze's hand was leaning towards my side, and his 5 slender and fair fingers were just hanging in the air openly. For some reason, my heart suddenly twitched. It turns out that Chingze already has someone he likes. I heard that Chingze has been getting very close to the beauty of the department recently. Last time, I even saw them coming out of the laboratory together, chatting and laughing. I sniffed my sour nose. Chingze can't stay by my side forever and be my brother alone. I will definitely have a sister-in-law in the future. Before the feeling of sadness faded away, my hand had already clenched into a fist, and all 5 fingers were down. "MOU lost, come on, have a drink." The club president wickedly poured me half a glass of wine just as I was about to reach out to take it. Chingze intercepted it. His eyebrows and eyes were cold. "I'll drink for her." "No need, I lost, so I'll drink it myself." "You're a girl, how will you get back to the dormitory if you get drunk?" I said distantly. I sent a message to Bai Yang, "He'll drive to pick me up later," for some reason. Chingze's face darkened even more. He looked at me as if he wanted to cut me into pieces. Then, without saying a word, he drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. Just after showing off his coolness, the next second, he fell straight onto me. What on earth is Chingze pretending for? He can't hold his liquor at all. Just one glass and he's out. 10. Chingze, when he's drunk, is even harder to control than a pig during the spring festival. Less than 2 minutes after falling down, he was clamoring to go back to school. Whoever tried to support him would get slapped twice, and he would just keep falling onto me. When Bai Yang came, he even received a series of fierce slaps. With great difficulty, we dragged Chingze into the car. I looked at Bai Yang's Audi A7 in shock. "This guy calls me miss all day long. It turns out that he's the real young master." Bai Yang looked at him, then at me. He said in an embarrassed tone, "Miss, why don't you sit in the passenger seat? Just leave him in the back seat. I'm afraid he'll go crazy from the alcohol and bite someone." Chingze hugged me even tighter. There was no other way, so I had to sit in the back seat with him. "I don't want to ride in his car." He leaned on my shoulder and complained, "Say that again, and I'll throw you out." I threatened him. Chingze shut up and smacked his lips twice. The corners of my mouth curled into a sneaky smile. Chingze is usually cold and serious, but once he drinks alcohol, his temperament changes completely. The first time I saw Chingze drunk was in our senior year of high school. Chingze, who had always been serious and solemn, stood by the rooftop singing out of tune "Love You," and we couldn't even pull him back. A bump jolted my thoughts back. Bai Yang glanced at him with a look of disgust through the rearview mirror. He probably was still holding a grudge for the slaps just now. He said resentfully, "Miss, let me tell you, a man who can hit people is not someone you should be with. We definitely can't be stuck on this crooked tree. If you want to find a boyfriend, I'll introduce someone to you. I know all kinds of 188 centimeters cute boys and mixed-race handsome guys." My eyes lit up. "Really?" Suddenly, a sharp pain came from my shoulder. Bai Yang was right. How can this guy really bite people when he's drunk? After biting me, he even looked aggrieved on his own. "I'm also 188 centimeters tall." After saying that, he completely fell into a deep sleep. 11. When I woke up the next day, I saw a message from Chingze. "When are you buying the plane ticket to come back?" I laughed out of anger. This guy doesn't even remember that he bit someone after his hangover, and I hold grudges. "You can go back by yourself." I made an appointment with Bai Yang to go on a trip. The typing status on the other side kept flashing. It took a long time for him to reply with a message. "Are you serious? It's fake?" That guy is so poor now that all he has left is an Audi A7. He even mooches off me for meals. Under my intense questioning, Bai Yang finally told me the truth. He had a conflict with his family. Now, not only has his credit card been blocked, but he's also making a living by washing dishes in the school cafeteria. What a story of a down-and-out young master wandering around. Feeling sorry for him, I suggested taking him to a restaurant. He wolfed down the food as if he hadn't eaten for 3 days, and mumbled with his mouth full, "Miss, remember to reimburse me for the gas money from last night." Just as he finished speaking, a beautiful couple walked over side by side. Chingze and the beauty of the department. Bai Yang and I stiffened at the same time. Both of them are outstanding people. Whether it's their appearance or their academic performance, they are at the top level. They are really a perfect match. They sat at the table next to us. Bai Yang's eyes wandered for a while before he dared to secretly glance at the beauty of the department for a moment. I understood immediately. For some reason, I suddenly felt a sense of empathy, as if we were both people who had fallen on hard times. So I picked up a big drumstick and put it in his bowl. 2 fierce gazes landed on me at the same time. Something's not right. Why is the plot going wrong? It's understandable that Chingze is glaring at me, but why is the beauty of the department glaring at me too? "Pretty sister, I didn't provoke you." Bai Yang was still carefree and didn't notice the strange atmosphere. "Miss, is it true that you said you would take me on a trip?" Chingze finally couldn't stand it anymore and stood up, slapping the table. His beautiful eyebrows were almost knitted together. and his eyes seemed to want to bore a hole in me. You're not going home just for a guy who lives off women, right? The beauty of the department cast an unhappy glance between the two of us, and then looked at Bai Yang with an unfriendly expression. Bai Yang, I didn't expect that after not seeing you for so long, you've already resorted to living off women. You really disappoint me. I waved my hand, trying to explain. We just want to go out and have some fun and get to know each other better. Qingzhe raised his eyebrows, filled with anger. Bai Yang also put down his chopsticks. No, she insisted on spending money on me, and of course, I'm happy to accept it. Qingzhe, she insisted on spending money on you, the beauty of the department. You're happy to accept it. Great, the more I explain, the worse it gets. It really seems like I'm a young lady and he's a guy who lives off women. Qingzhe's Adam's apple rolled, the corners of his eyes turned red, and his eyes stared fixedly at Bai Yang. His well-defined fingers clenched into a fist, and the veins on his hands bulged. I know Qingzhe, he's always calm and self-controlled, and he's indifferent in dealing with things. This is a sign that he's angry. I quickly pulled Bai Yang and slipped away. We have something else to do, we're leaving now. 12. Halfway through our escape, Bai Yang finally dared to ask me timidly. Has your childhood sweetheart ever killed someone? Why do I feel like his eyes just now were trying to torture me to death? I thought seriously for 2 seconds and then nodded slowly, hesitantly. Qingzhe hasn't killed anyone, but he did almost cripple a lecherous man's private parts for my sake. In the first year of junior high school, there was a flasher on my way home from school. He was probably a pedophile and had molested primary school students before. I was so scared that I burst into tears. At that time, Qingzhe was just like he was just now, his eyes red with anger, his fists clenched. He almost beat that guy to a pulp before sending him to the police station, and he himself was seriously injured and stayed in the hospital for half a month. Bai Yang was even more terrified, his face wrinkled. Miss, does your childhood sweetheart like you? Qingzhe likes me. How is that possible? Since he was a child, he has hated me the most and been annoyed by me the most. He protected me just because he regarded me as a troublesome sister. That resentful face appeared in front of my eyes again. I will never let you go for the rest of my life. I shook my head, trying to shake off this shadow from my mind. He sees me as bad luck and a burden, but I'm also a responsibility that he can't avoid. He just regards me as his sister. Then why do I feel like he has a strong hostility towards me? I looked at the yellow hair on Bai Yang's head and touched my chin thoughtfully. According to my experience on the internet, no brother will have a good impression of a guy with yellow hair. You're the one with yellow hair. This is a genuine 24K pure blonde hair color. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me vigorously. I felt dizzy from this shaking. How dare you? I'm the young lady. The proletariat has to resist once in a while, right? My phone vibrated. At that time, everyone was still using QQ, and Qingzhe was my special concern. He sent me a message. Do you like him? I recalled the scene of Qingzhe and the beauty of the department standing together just now. He's naturally cold and has never liked the approach of the opposite sex since he was a child. During his adolescence, he could be so abstinent that he regarded pornographic videos as garbage and drugs. Now that he can go in and out with the beauty of the department, he probably has developed feelings for her. He should be standing beside a better person. My chest felt stuffy, and I typed back to him. Qingzhe, this has nothing to do with you. Who I make friends with and who I like have nothing to do with you. I've grown up. Don't worry about me anymore. It wasn't until I heard Bai Yang apologize in a panic that I realized there were wet things running down my cheeks. Miss, why are you crying again? I was wrong. I won't shake you anymore. I wiped away my tears. I'm not crying. It's just the wind. When we reached the corner, out of the corner of my eye, Qingzhe was still standing in the restaurant. His gaze passed through the transparent floor-to-ceiling glass and landed on me, his expression obscure. 13. Bai Yang and I didn't go on the trip because Qingzhe told me that Uncle Qing and Aunt Qing would come back from abroad in advance before the spring festival and wanted to have a reunion dinner together. I believed it, then I was deceived. I looked at the empty villa. Only Qingzhe was sitting on the sofa, his legs crossed, his hands clasped and placed on his knees. In a full state of scrutiny, I picked up my suitcase and turned around, wanting to leave. Suppressing his anger, he said in a low voice, let's talk. I sat back down as if resigned to my fate and stared at the floor, lost in a daze. Why on earth have you become like this? I played dumb. Like what? Qingzhe's eyes narrowed dangerously. You used to just follow me around, didn't you? What's going on? Do you have new friends and have forgotten about me? I've grown up, Qing Chingze lowered his voice, and his tone became dangerous. It's this: I've grown up again. I'd rather you didn't grow up and were always as clingy and obedient as when you were a child. I vaguely felt that the atmosphere was a bit off. I always felt that Chingze had been possessed by someone. The previous him was gentle and cold, and he would never be like a vaguely angry beast now, wanting to swallow people up. I stood up abruptly. My friend has something to ask me. I'm going out for a while. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. You want to go find Bayang again? Are you together? He was gripping me so tightly that it hurt. I also felt a bit of dissatisfaction. So what if we are? What right do you have to control me? Chingze completely exploded. He pulled me closer. What right do I have to control you? MOU. I brought you up. I helped you clean up the mess every time you caused trouble when you were a child. The person who has always been by your side is me. Now you're asking me what right I have to control you. He's right. He brought me up. Uncle Ching is the president of a pharmaceutical company, and Aunt Ching is also a tycoon in the medical field. They are both very busy. Over the years, Chingze has been both a father and a mother to me. I felt a pang of guilt in my heart. However, I'm a harbinger of bad luck. If I get close to Chingze, I will only bring him bad luck. He should have a bright future. If I really want what's best for him, I should stay far away from him. At least I should protect his hand. I lowered my head. Chingze, just think of me as heartless. Please don't worry about me anymore. I don't need you to take care of me. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Bayang. Chingze saw it too. For the first time, he snatched my phone, then he locked me up. 14. When I heard the door being locked, I was still too shocked to come to my senses. Is he crazy? Chingze, let me out. Are you insane? But no matter how much I banged on the door, all I could hear was a faint, sorry, and the sound of footsteps getting farther and farther away. Something's not right. Chingze is not acting right. I sat back on my bed, trying to calm down and figure out his abnormal behavior. Even if he objects to me being with Bayang, he wouldn't go this far. Or could it be? Absolutely impossible. The moment that thought came up, I firmly rejected it. Finally, it was the aunt who came to clean at the fixed time who opened the door for me. I ran downstairs and was just about to confront Chingze when I only saw the messy wine bottles in the living room. How much did he drink? Most of my anger dissipated, leaving only a bit of worry. I knocked on Chingze's bedroom door, planning to get my phone back, but after knocking several times, there was no response from inside. I pressed my ear against the door, but I didn't hear any sound either. Normally, Chingze is quite rowdy when he's drunk, and I have a deep impression of that. Could he have alcohol poisoning? The shadow of my previous life once again enveloped me, and my heart seemed to be about to jump out. Could it be that I still hurt him? I twisted the doorknob like a madman. As soon as I opened the door, an extremely faint and sticky moan completely cut off my rational nerves. Chingze was sitting on the floor, looking at the end of the bed. In front of him was a huge projection screen. When I was a child, I often came to his room to watch movies with it, but now, there was only a photo of me hanging on that screen. The room was not lit. In the dimness, only a faint white light fell on the man's confused face. The corners of Chingze's eyes were crimson, his eyes were filled with a watery light, his lips were slightly parted, and he was still moaning intermittently. Looking further down, my legs went weak, my heart stopped for a moment, and I unconsciously took a step back, bumping into the door behind me. Chingze looked over, as if blaming me for disturbing his mood, and his eyebrows furrowed slightly. Sorry for the interruption. Why you can continue. I'll leave now. Just as I turned around in a panic, I heard a sticky MOU coming from behind. Then came a heavy gasp. My mind went completely blank. 15. The next morning, Chingze knocked on my door and asked me to have breakfast. He looked natural, as if he had forgotten everything that happened after he got drunk. On the contrary, I was so unnatural at the dining table that he frowned and asked me, "What's wrong with you today? You've choked 3 times while eating." After saying that, he thoughtfully handed me a glass of milk. I coughed twice and quickly took a sip. Chingze's eyes looking at me became darker and darker. Then he reached out his hand, his index finger gently lifting my chin, and his thumb slowly rubbing across the corner of my lips. His eyes landed on my lips, full of aggression. I widened my eyes and was just about to back away when he retracted his hand in time and then naturally started eating his breakfast. I had been so curious about what happened last night that I couldn't sleep all night. Come on, just ask. But the words turned around in my mouth several times, and I still couldn't ask. As soon as I thought of the scene from last night, my face began to feel hot. If you want to ask something, just ask, he said. Do you still remember? It's nothing. I want to go out for a while. Please give me back my phone first. I felt that if I stayed at home any longer, I would really explode from holding it in, no matter what explanation Chingze gave for his actions last night. I couldn't accept it for the time being, so I chose not to ask. I remember, he took a sip of soybean milk. I remember everything I did last night. Anyway, it's not the first time, you don't have to be so nervous. My behavior when I'm drunk may not be good, but I have a good memory, he continued. I remember the time I kissed you when I was drunk in our senior year of high school. And the time I held you in the car during the last club dinner. My mind went blank. I opened my mouth. I had so many things to ask, but it seemed like I couldn't ask anything. Subconsciously, I said, Chingze, do you like me? He lowered his eyes, and his earlobes turned red unnaturally. He nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if he was shy. I froze completely. 16. I made an excuse to go to the supermarket to buy some New Year's goods, wanting to calm down. Lu Dehua's Wish You Prosperity was playing in the supermarket, and the atmosphere of the Chinese New Year was very strong. Chingze followed me closely, and I couldn't shake him off. What's more, his temperament had changed completely, and his tone when speaking to me was so gentle that it seemed to be dripping with tenderness. I pleaded, brother, can you be normal? Chingze was a bit angry. Don't call me brother. I was taken aback. Chingze had never liked me calling him brother since we were young. I originally thought he was annoyed with me, but now I got my phone back and started frantically sending messages to Bai Yang. Chingze likes me. Do you think he's crazy? Bai Yang, even a dog on the street can see it, but you can't. Chingze seemed to be picking and choosing in front of the shelves, but in fact, his eyes would glance at my phone screen from time to time. He chuckled, even that fool can see it, but you can't. I was dissatisfied. Don't call him a fool. Chingze raised his eyebrows and laughed angrily. He's been secretly in love with Chingshui for so long, but didn't dare to confess. It made her so angry that she thought he was going to play with her feelings and abandon her. The title of fool wasn't given by me. Chingshui was the beauty of the department, so they were an alliance of lovelorn people at that time. Chingze pushed the shopping cart and continued walking forward, leaving me standing there in a daze. There was the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. A surprised voice brought my senses back. "Mou, it's really you." I looked at the person in front of me for a long time before I had some impression. Chinan smiled. "It's me. You still remember me? Well, I also gave you a love letter in high school. The handwriting was ugly, so you might have some impression." He scratched his head awkwardly and stammered, do you have a boyfriend now? What love letter? Before I could ask, Chingze took my hand, his tone cold and hard. "Was the lesson I gave you last time not enough?" Chinan left with an embarrassed face after saying goodbye to me. After Chinan left, I asked him through gritted teeth, "What love letter? Did you throw away all my love letters?" I said that I was beautiful and did well in my studies in high school. Why didn't anyone confess to me? So the obstacle was here. Chingze's face looked a bit unnatural, and he said stiffly, "Just to prevent you from having a puppy love, these people were still giving you love letters in the senior year of high school. Isn't that harming you? Especially this guy, he would stuff them into your locker at 5 o'clock sharp every morning, which made me unable to sleep well." So, for a while in the senior year of high school, Chingze went to school at 5 o'clock for a whole month. I thought he was annoyed with me and didn't want to go to school with me. It turned out that he was throwing away my love letters. Chingze, don't you think you're meddling too much in my business? His face changed, and he held my hand even tighter, as if afraid that I would leave out of anger. "I'm not meddling in your business, I'm just eliminating those who oppose me." His face turned red again. "It's enough to have me by your side, I will protect you well." As he spoke, the corners of his eyes also turned a little red. He looked at me stubbornly and said, "Since we were young, haven't I protected you well? It's enough to have me. Why do you still look at others? Oh no. Why has the unreachable flower on the high mountain turned into a yandere?" Thinking carefully, Chingze has really been very good to me. The harshest words he ever said to me were just that sentence, "You will only bring me bad luck," when we were young and ignorant during our adolescence. But it was that sentence that made me want to stay away from him. My heart was in a mess. I shook off his hand and was still a bit dazed until we checked out and left. Chingze just quietly followed behind me, his eyebrows and eyes melancholy and dim, but his gaze never moved for a moment until his exclamation, "Mou. Be careful." Then came the harsh screeching sound of the tires rubbing against the ground as the wheels made an emergency stop. I was pushed away. 17. Chingze was sent to the operating room. I sat on the chair outside, my body shaking uncontrollably because I'm a harbinger of bad luck. That's why my parents, whose careers were booming and who loved each other deeply, were killed because of me, because I'm a harbinger of bad luck. That's why my grandmother, who loved me, suddenly died of a heart attack at home, because I'm a harbinger of bad luck. That's why the people around me will all get hurt, those who love me and those I love will all be implicated by me. Tears streamed down my face in big drops, and I sobbed uncontrollably. Fear almost enveloped my entire body. I liked Qingzhe, I just dare not admit it. During the 2-hour operation, every minute and every second, I was in an extreme hell. I was in a daze, thinking, why wasn't it me who was hit? Why wasn't it me who died back then? It wasn't until the operation was successful and Qingzhe, who was still in a coma after being given anesthesia, was transferred to a general ward that I was pulled back from hell. But I didn't dare to see him. After paying the medical expenses, I sat on a stone pier at the entrance of the hospital in a daze until Qingzhe found me in a wheelchair. He sighed and wiped the undried tears on my face with his thumb. Why are you crying like a little cat? I choked back a sob and apologized. I'm sorry. He looked at me with pity. I'm not blaming you, but I'm the one who hurt you. I'm a harbinger of bad luck. I've only brought you trouble since we were young. My family members were all killed because of me. Qingzhe, I don't want to kill you too. He frowned. Is this why you've been distancing yourself from me? I raised my wrinkled face from crying and nodded. He laughed angrily and flicked my forehead. MOU. You've at least received Marxist education. Can you have some materialist thinking? How can someone be a harbinger of bad luck by nature? But that's what they all say. Qingzhe was both angry and felt sorry for me. Don't listen to their nonsense. Everyone has their own destined fate. The death and misfortune of anyone have nothing to do with you. Why do you have to take the blame on yourself? But you also said that I would only bring you bad luck, and I have indeed brought you a lot of bad things. All the injuries you've suffered since we were young were because of me. A look of guilt appeared on Qingzhe's face. Sorry, those were just angry words at that time. I'm really sorry, but MOU. I didn't get hurt because of you. It's because I love you. I love you, so I want to protect you. All the consequences brought about by love should not be borne by the one being loved. This is my own choice, and I'm willing to pay the price for this choice. I was still crying sadly, but Qingzhe, I always feel that my life is like a curse, and I can't get out of it. MOU. He gently pulled me into his arms, his tone full of pity. It's not that you can't get out of the curse, it's that you can't get over the death of your loved ones. Finally, I burst into tears. He coaxed me softly. I've liked you since we were young. Protecting you isn't a responsibility, it's because I like you, because I love you, so please don't push me away anymore, okay? Since we were young. It's not that you can't live without me, but that I can't live without you. After saying that, he hugged me even tighter, feeling insecure. Even if you push me away, it doesn't matter. In this life, I will never let you go. I was suddenly stunned. Qingzhe also said this sentence in my previous life. However, it once became my nightmare, and I didn't want to recall it. But was it really as I thought before, that he said it out of resentment? I originally thought that my death in the previous life would be a relief and something to be glad about for Qingzhe. For some reason, my heart felt as if it had been hollowed out, bringing boundless empty fear. I said blankly, Qingzhe, if one day I die. He almost embedded me into his body. There's no if. In this life, I will protect you, and you will have a safe and smooth life. I asked him eagerly, if I really die, what will you do? What should you do? He smiled bitterly. I don't know. MOU. I can't live without you. If what you said is true, that there are strange forces and supernatural things in the world and that people have their own fates, then let me bear all the misfortunes in your life. Suddenly, it went pitch black in front of my eyes, and I fainted. 18 When I woke up again, I was in the hospital bed. Only Qingzhe was by my side, numbly guarding me, his empty eyes staring at my hand in a daze. I didn't know how long he hadn't slept. His white eyes were filled with bloodshot eyes, and there was a stubble of beard on his chin. He looked in a daze, just like I was when I was waiting outside the operating room. I moved my fingers, wanting to touch his face. He suddenly raised his head, and in his eyes that met mine, there was great surprise and hope for life, as if he was the one who had survived a disaster. Xiaoyu, I'm sorry. Tears welled up in his eyes. I almost forgot that I had been in a car accident to save him. I wanted to repay his kindness. I smiled. Qingzhe, you once told me that all the consequences brought about by love should not be borne by the one being loved. I love you too. There were footsteps at the door of the ward, and two familiar figures walked in holding hands. It was Bai Yang and Qing Shui. "Oh my, miss, you're showing affection again." The sunlight shone in through the window. "Here, there is everything I love." 19 After the car accident, did I travel through time? Until I told him about the guilt in my heart, Qingzai expressed, who said my childhood dream was to study medicine. He helplessly supported his forehead. "Since I was a child, whenever I was sick, it was my mom who gave me injections. I've always hated this profession deeply." I was shocked. "Then why did you?" "Qingzai, wasn't it you who said since you were a child that Hua Tuo was your idol?" "I just copied your college entrance examination application." Realizing that there was a misunderstanding, I smiled awkwardly. "Don't worry, I'll help my dad manage the company in the future, since I can't do surgery anymore. I still have the family business to inherit, but I'll remember the thing about you delaying my future. MOU, in this life, you have to be with me." This guy can finally speak like a normal person. Story 2. The young master of the Xia family in Wangjing, a paragon of elegance and handsomeness, had nothing to do with me. However, one day, he suddenly grabbed my sleeve, his eyes red-rimmed. "It's not too late, we haven't divorced yet, in this life, let's start anew." I was gnawing on a marinated pig's trotter and was taken aback. But I'm not planning to marry you either." 1 Xiaoyu was a flawless jade, a man coveted by many. He was the ideal husband that countless young ladies yearned for, including my elder sister by birth, Chen Jingxian. She said that young Master Xia would surely rise to a high position in the court in the future, and she was determined to strive for him. But Xiaoyu had a cold and aloof demeanor, sparing no kind words for anyone. One day, my elder sister accidentally fell into the water. When she woke up, she suddenly slapped me and said, "You infatuated fool, don't like Xiaoyu, and don't marry him." I stared at her in bewilderment. "You can scold yourself if you want, but why hit me? Besides, it's not like I can marry Xiaoyu just because I want to." The Xia family was an aristocratic family that had endured for centuries, a family of great wealth and influence. Even a princess might not be able to marry into it. Before I could regain my senses, my step-mother had dragged my elder sister out and whipped her. "How dare you hit your sister? I think you've lost your mind. Your sister hasn't even been betrothed yet." My elder sister suddenly burst into laughter. Good, this is wonderful." She laughed until tears streamed down her face. She got up, her clothes still wet, and hugged me. "It's truly the heaven's blessing that my Azu hasn't been betrothed yet. In this life, I won't let you marry that scoundrel again." 2. My elder sister pulled me and our step-mother into the room, dismissed the servants, and after taking a deep breath, she began to tell her story. She said she was reborn. In her previous life, I tripped during a banquet and fell directly into Xiaoyu's arms. One look at Xiaoyu, and you could see his grace and charm, his eyebrows and eyes as beautiful as a painting. He instinctively caught me, and we spun around on the spot. Then we both landed on the ground, with me on top of him. Xiaoyu didn't have a heartbeat, heart flutter, referring to a feeling of being attracted. Neither did I, but Xiaoyu's mother did. When she saw me knock Xiaoyu to the ground, she thought I was sturdy. I was plump, with a round face and big hips, which made me seem fertile. The Xia family had a single-line inheritance, and concubines were not allowed. The family had a sparse population, so she overruled all objections and proposed marriage to our family. 7 years after we got married, Xiaoyu gave me a divorce letter. He said he didn't have romantic feelings for me. Hearing this, I nodded. Well, that's about what I expected. I and Xiaoyu really didn't seem like a couple who could live together harmoniously. My step-mother suddenly asked, "Did Azu have children?" My elder sister was silent for a moment and then said, "Yes, 3 children, and they all stayed in the Xia family." Shocked, the marinated pig's trotter in my hand dropped onto my elder sister's skirt. The new skirt immediately became greasy and fragrant. Instead of blaming me, my elder sister gently held my not so small head. 3 children, let's not talk about them. In the end, under the strict gazes of my step-mother and elder sister, I knelt down and swore that in this life, I would rather marry a pig than marry Xiaoyu, and I would rather go through menopause than give birth to any more children. 3 In the following months, my elder sister took me everywhere with her, avoiding all places where Xiaoyu might appear, but I thought she was overthinking. There was a huge gap between me and Xiaoyu. The young master of the Xia family was a close aide to the emperor, a favored son of heaven, referring to a very outstanding person, and I was a half-legitimate daughter of the Chen family, plain-looking, lazy, and fond of good food. In the past, When we met at banquets, he was always in the spotlight and never looked at me in the corner. Besides, it had been 7 years, and Xiaoyu had said he didn't like me, even if we ran into each other. So what? My elder sister said meaningfully. You're young and don't understand. Although he doesn't like you, it doesn't stop him from sleeping with you for 7 years. When she said this, she snorted, showing more and more disgust towards Xiaoyu. If he was also reborn, there's a good chance he would harm you again. The matter of being reborn wasn't like growing a pound of meat. It couldn't happen whenever one wanted, and not everyone had this chance. At that time, I scoffed at this idea. On the way, we met some noble ladies who we didn't get along with. Before, my elder sister, contrary to her usual self, greeted them with a smile. After those noble ladies left, my elder sister sighed. A lifetime is like a big dream, they're all poor souls. But when she heard that a cousin of the Xia family had sent his daughter here, her face darkened. That family was from Jiangnan, and their family fortune had declined. They had the nerve to send their unmarried daughter to the capital, hoping to secure a good marriage. The girl named Shen Qingji was delicate and frail, but her back was straight, as if she had an unyielding spirit, and she looked particularly pitiful. Xiaoyu's mother, being kind-hearted, kept her. My elder sister rolled her eyes but didn't say anything. I wasn't interested in asking either. The spring days were long and the spring scenery was delightful. The good days passed quickly. In a blink of an eye, it was the day my elder sister had been dreading, the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. I tied a silk ribbon around my waist, and the other end was tightly held by my elder sister. She watched the water clock, calculating the time when I and Xiaoyu had bumped into each other in the previous life. After a while, she let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that the time had passed. I was really suffocating. The silk ribbon that bound my waist and abdomen was untied. I went to the toilet, and at the corner, I saw a person. The gentleman was as beautiful as jade, so good looking that it made people forget everything. The moment he saw me, his eyes showed a moment of daze. When I passed by him, he called out to me, "Chenanju, do you love me so much that you can't even look at me?" For I turned back in confusion and met the eyes of that young master. He frowned and said, "Why are you pretending with me? You've deliberately avoided meeting me several times. Isn't it because you don't want to see me like in the previous life? Unfortunately, you didn't get what you wanted." Hearing these words, I suddenly realized, so, this was Xiaoyu. He looked like a celestial being. My elder sister was wrong. It wasn't him who slept with me for 7 years, but me who slept with him for 7 years. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Xiaoyu's voice turned colder. "Do you avoid me like a snake or a scorpion? You don't even want to say a word to me." His clenched hands had whitened knuckles, and his sharp eyes landed on me, filled with dissatisfaction. I really needed to pee, bro. And my elder sister didn't allow me to talk to him. I turned and ran, leaving Xiaoyu behind. He said, "Chenanju, we were husband and wife. Even if I've wronged you, can't we even be friends?" His figure was slender and upright. Standing there, he seemed a bit aggrieved. I really didn't understand what he was up to. Did he really want to be friends with me that much? After returning to the banquet, I truthfully reported the encounter with Xiaoyu. My elder sister crushed the wine cup, sneering. Her murderous gaze penetrated the curtain separating the men's and women's seating areas. On the other side of the curtain, not far away, was a figure in white. It was not difficult to tell that it was Xiaoyu. I buried my head in eating, not daring to breathe. After the banquet had gone on for a while, a woman arrived late. She was as delicate as a willow in the wind. With a graceful bow, she made the men's seating area quiet for a moment. She introduced herself. It was Shen Qingji, the cousin of the Xia family. She was very good at talking and soon won the praise of several noble ladies. Everyone praised her as a talented woman. Shen Qingji quickly said, "When it comes to learning, I can't compare to my cousin at all. I haven't seen my cousin in these days. I've heard in Jiangnan that my cousin is extremely learned and is a rare man in the world. I've always admired him. If I could just see him." Her voice was clear and unhurried. Behind the curtain, the figure in white paused in the action of raising the wine cup. Obviously, these words had reached Xiaoyu's ears. My elder sister snorted, putting on an act. Suddenly, an idea flashed in my mind. Could it be that she was the reason for my divorce from Xiaoyu? 5. This guess was further confirmed when Xiaoyu stopped me and my elder sister. He said, "Chenanju, did you make things difficult for Shen Qingji just now?" "I've already said it has nothing to do with her." Before I could speak, my elder sister had pulled me behind her. She was an excellent actress, and her performance was flawless. With a look of 3 tense confusion, 3 tense anger, 3 tenths protectiveness, and 1 tenth fear on her face. She said, "Young Master Xia, how can you directly call my sister by her given name? My sister hasn't gotten married yet. What if her reputation is ruined because of this?" Xiaoyu was taken aback. He had come in a hurry and only then realized that this was not the previous life. His eyes lingered on my face several times, but he could only see the expression of what on earth is this person doing? Please respect yourself, young Master Xia. With that, my elder sister was about to pull me away. Xiaoyu instinctively reached out to grab my sleeve. I jumped 3 feet away and fled to the other side of my elder sister, hiding behind her like a chick behind an old hen. Xiaoyu's face instantly stiffened. "Do you dislike me touching you so much?" I nodded firmly without hesitation. Xiaoyu said with a sullen face, "Then those 7 years, sharing the same bed with me, must have been really hard on you." As soon as he finished speaking, my elder sister slapped him across the face. My elder sister said furiously, "Absurd, young Master Xia, if you continue to slander my sister's reputation like this, I will definitely sue you at the yamen." Xiaoyu's head tilted to one side. Presumably, my elder sister had used all her strength without holding back, before Xiaoyu could react. My elder sister and I had taken the opportunity to leave after this incident. Xiaoyu seemed to believe that I wasn't reborn. He sent someone to our house to apologize and present a gift, saying that he had drunk too much that day and his mind was muddled. The gift was a jade bracelet worth 1,000 gold, as expected of the young master of the Xia family. Xiaoyu was really generous, but my elder sister said, "Bad luck. In the previous life, you gave birth to 3 sons for him, and he never gave you anything." He also said that as the mistress of the Xia family, there were special people to buy you any jewelry you wanted, so he didn't need to give you anything. But then he turned around and bought a lot of things for that cousin. Now he's just pretending. I had someone pawn the bracelet and exchange it for silver. This way, it wasn't bad luck anymore. A few days later, Xiaoyu invited me to meet him again, saying he wanted to apologize in person. Naturally, I didn't agree. My elder sister said, "We've accepted young Master Xia's gift, there's no need for an in-person apology, let this matter pass." But Xiaoyu didn't give up. Perhaps he wanted to confirm whether I was reborn or not. When he came to our house again, my elder sister refused to let him in the door. He said, "Miss Chen, the second, I sincerely want to apologize. Could you please give me the honor of seeing you?" My elder sister shouted, "Young Master Xia, my sister already has someone she likes and has no intention of seeing you. If you continue to affect my sister's reputation for innocence." Xiaoyu's voice suddenly stopped. Afraid that he wouldn't believe it, my elder sister continued, "That person will come to propose marriage soon. Young Master Xia, please leave quickly." Outside the door, it was quiet for a long time. 6. Before leaving, Xiaoyu said, "There's no need to make up such an excuse. If Miss Chen, the second, doesn't want to see me, that's fine. I owe you. In the future, if you need any help, I will do my best." This of course didn't refer to those few offensive words a few days ago. It referred to the 7 years in the previous life. After that day, Xiaoyu didn't show up again. My elder sister still wasn't at ease. She dragged our step-mother and really started to look for a man for me. At the same time, in the tea house, people were talking about Xiaoyu and Shen Qingji. Shen Qingji was being molested by hooligans, and by chance, Xiaoyu passed by and saved the beauty. Shen Qingji was so moved that she shed tears and presented him with poems. Xiaoyu pitied the beauty, and in the following days, the two of them were seen together everywhere, attending banquets. As for me, I had met several men one after another, but I didn't take a fancy to any of them. My elder sister, not getting up, asked me what was wrong with them. I couldn't say exactly, but I said they weren't as important as a marinated pig's trotter. Perhaps it was just a matter of not having a connection. After thinking for a few days, my elder sister sent someone to Jiangnan to find a man surnamed Wei. She said that Wei Nanting would come to Wanjing to take the imperial examination and pass it several years later. Later, after I got divorced and lived alone, he happened to live next door and took good care of me. She said that at that time, she had gone to a foreign land with her husband's family and didn't know the details of what happened between me and Wei Nanting. His family background is a bit humble, but if you really like him, I will help you. I replied lackadaisically. I thought he must be a poor scholar, but when the person was really brought in front of me, I was so shocked that my jaw dropped. The meeting place was in a pavilion in the middle of a lake. The person who came was 9 feet tall, wearing a short, sleeved shirt. His exposed arms were muscular, his back was broad, and his waist was narrow. He had a dark and honest smiling face, and when he smiled, a row of shiny white teeth showed. My elder sister, seeing my stunned look, added, the #1 martial arts scholar. After my elder sister said this, she gracefully left, leaving me stunned. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. After a while, Wei Nanting pointed at the empty plate and spoke. He stammered but said something astonishing. Miss Chen, the second, you can really eat, you're amazing. It was the first time someone had praised me like this. I smiled shyly. Thank you, I think so too. I wanted to grab another piece of pastry but found the plate empty. I withdrew my hand in embarrassment. I drank some tea, touched my bracelet, and then touched my hairpin. Suddenly, a pearl on my hairpin rolled down. I watched as it rolled into the lake. Before I could react, Wei Nanting jumped into the water without hesitation. The sound of him falling into the water was like a huge stone cannonball. The water splashed all over my face. The maidservant panicked and went to find someone. I leaned over the lake, shouting Wei Nanting. Not long after, a hand with distinct joints emerged from the water, firmly grasping the bank. With a whoosh, Wei Nanting emerged from the water like a black fish. He almost bumped into me, who was staring at the lake. His short-sleeved shirt had come loose, and water droplets flowed from his sharp jaw. His bulging pectoral muscles and well-defined abdominal muscles rose and fell slightly. Somehow, it made one blush. I quickly said, it's okay if you can't find it, I have a lot of hairpins. Wei Nanting laughed, like a dog asking for praise. He opened his palm, and there was the small pearl. Here you are. My mind went blank, like a roasted suckling pig exploded in my head. I stared at him dumbly. He seemed more attractive than a marinated pig's trotter. Time seemed to stand still. The maidservants looked on from a distance, not disturbing us. It was at this moment that Xiaoyu appeared. 7 Xiaoyu, awakening from a dream in the rain on the plantain. Thunder rumbled. Xiaoyu suddenly woke up. He covered his chest, listening to the rain outside. He had dreamed of his previous life. He had proposed a divorce. Chen Anju didn't pester him. He heaved a sigh of relief. The day after the divorce, he went to pay his respects to his mother as usual, but his mother didn't see him. She was still angry. She had liked Chen Anju as a daughter-in-law, but since Xiaoyu had decided on the divorce, it must have been something he had thought about for a long time. With no room for change, Shen Qingji called him over. She was more tender and affectionate than ever. With a blushing face, delicate makeup, and charming eyes, Xiaoyu's heart stirred slightly, but due to his busy official duties, he didn't stay long. He and Shen Qingji were innocent. He had said this to Chen Anju when he proposed the divorce. They were confidants, friends, not an assorted relationship. Chen Anju's elder sister, Chen Jingxian, had specially written a letter to scold him and Shen Qingji. When the servant delivered the letter to him, he opened it and took a look. The whole letter was full of swear words, and the handwriting was so forceful that it seemed as if it wasn't written by a person who had been ill for a long time. A month after the divorce, Chen Anju still hadn't shown up. Xiaoyu had already gotten used to such a life, except that once, when he was changing clothes, he subconsciously called out Chen Anju. Naturally, no one responded, and the maidservant didn't dare to either. In the second year after the divorce, Xiaoyu suddenly thought of Chen Anju again. This was the 5th time he had thought of her this month. Not much, but it was only the 2nd day of this month. The dishes on the table were very light. This was his dietary preference, different from Chen Anju's love for rich and greasy food, not only in diet, but in many other aspects. He and Chen Anju were different. They were completely not a match. He frowned and said, why is there no marinated pig's trotter? Chen Anju won't be able to get enough to eat like this. As soon as he said this, he was stunned himself. Just at this moment, the servant said that Shen Qingji was asking to see him. Xiaoyu subconsciously said, what does she want? The servant was a bit puzzled. In the past, whenever Miss Shen came to see Xiaoyu, she didn't need to give a reason, and Xiaoyu would let her in. The servant quickly said, I'll go and ask Miss Shen. Xiaoyu waved his hand. Don't ask, let her go. I'm too busy to see her. These days, Shen Qingji came every 3 days. Naturally, it was nothing important. Either she came to discuss poetry with him or to care about him, to add clothes when it was cold, a beauty adding fragrance to the study, gentle and considerate. If he were to remarry, it should be a woman like her, not someone like Chen Anju. He had thought this way before he proposed the divorce, and of course, he still thought so now. When he went out, he heard someone gossiping. The young widow on East Street got married again. Xiaoyu stopped in his tracks. How could a widow get married again? He had never thought that Chen Anju might remarry that night. he finally couldn't help but send someone to inquire about Chen Anju's recent situation. The servant who came back to report said that Chen Anju was no longer in Wangjing. The eldest daughter of the Chen family, who had been living in seclusion in Qingzhou to recuperate for many years, passed away 3 months ago. The second daughter of the Chen family went to mourn. Her neighbor said that the second daughter of the Chen family has no intention of coming back, and she didn't leave alone. Xiaoyu broke the writing brush. She wouldn't come back. That night, he sat until dawn. He couldn't figure it out. Why was Chen Anju so heartless enough to not come and see him even once for so long, heartless enough to abandon even her 3 sons, just leave with someone else like this, no matter how much she hated him. She was the mother of the children and shouldn't be so cold-hearted. It was all a dream. Fortunately, it was just a dream of the previous life. He wouldn't delay Chen Anju anymore, and Chen Anju wouldn't hate him either. He didn't believe that Chen Anju wasn't reborn. If she wasn't, why would she avoid meeting him again and again? Of course, he had also avoided her unconsciously, with the emotional foundation of the previous life. Although they couldn't be husband and wife, they could be friends, or confidants. Just like he and Shen Qingji in the dream. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but curl his lips. The words confidant and Chen Anju seemed to have nothing to do with each other, but he was a bit greedy for the way she quietly listened to him while stuffing food into her mouth. Presumably, being confidants and friends with her would be a good experience, but why did he always want to seek her out? The plantain leaves swayed, tick-tock, the rain fell until dawn. At dawn, he decided to look for Chen Anju. 8. The blush on my face hadn't dissipated yet, when Xiaoyu saw Wei Nanting. Anger suddenly rose in his eyes. He said resentfully, in the previous life, when I proposed the divorce, you didn't hesitate at all. Did you already have someone else in your heart? Xiaoyu's eyes were red, as if he had suffered a great deal of emotional pain, but my elder sister had clearly told me that it was he who had fallen in love with someone else. Xiaoyu had married me not out of love. He thought I didn't know how to play the qin, chess, calligraphy, or painting, and couldn't compose poems with him. In the first 2 years, every time we had sex, he looked as if he was going to war, with a very ugly expression. Fortunately, later, he seemed to get used to it, or perhaps he became addicted to it. Xiaoyu and I had 3 sons. In contrast, Shen Qingji was different from me. She seemed to be a wife tailor-made for him, meeting all his expectations according to my elder sister. I was infatuated with Xiaoyu. The first time I saw Xiaoyu and Shen Qingji drinking under the moon, I sensed something was wrong. Xiaoyu didn't explain anything to me. After the first time, there were the second, third, countless times, sometimes in the plum garden outside the city, sometimes in the poetry club. In short, all elegant places. They were confidants, smiling at each other. They might not have gone that far yet. So, when Xiaoyu proposed the divorce to me, he was very righteous. He said he hadn't done anything to betray me, and neither had Shen Qingji. The 2 of them were innocent. It was just that he had discovered his true feelings and didn't love me. My 3 sons said that Aunt Shen was more like a lady of a big family than me, and I was really too vulgar. Just like that, I signed the divorce agreement. The day I left the Xia family, no one saw me off. When I heard this, I was very shocked. I couldn't imagine that I would fall in love with someone like Xiaoyu. Could it be that feelings are developed through sleeping together? Then this time, I'll never sleep with him again. At this moment, Xiaoyu still wanted to say something, but I grabbed Wei Nanting and ran. My elder sister said that I could only interact with Xiaoyu in her presence. Since she wasn't there, I naturally couldn't talk to Xiaoyu. Wei Nanting might look big and strong, but he was very obedient and didn't ask a single question. As we ran, he carried me on his shoulder. I pointed the way, and he ran in that direction. I took a moment to look back at Xiaoyu. He was standing there alone, like a discarded dog. Back at the Chen family, my elder sister asked Wei Nanting, "What do you think of my Azu?" Wei Nanting's dark face turned red, looking rustic yet handsome. "Miss Chen, the second, is the best." My elder sister nodded in satisfaction and then carefully questioned him for a long time. She confirmed that he was an orphan, with a clean background, no childhood betrothed wife, no childhood sweetheart, no cousin, and no first love. I was dumbfounded. After getting a satisfactory answer, my elder sister asked Wei Nanting, "In the future, I will use Azu's pocket money to support you. After you pass the imperial examination with honors, you must repay her 1,000 times or even 100 times, whether it's with silver or something else. You two can discuss it yourself." As she spoke, she ordered someone to bring a contract. Before I could react, Wei Nanting had signed and sealed it. After Wei Nanting left, I finally summoned the courage to say, "Sister, I didn't, ever since he came, you've even forgotten to eat the steamed buns with preserved vegetable and pork filling. What else do I not understand?" I twisted my handkerchief and said, "I just think he's big and strong, with a crispy outer layer. He seems to be very delicious. Could this be the feeling of being in love?" Then in Wei Nanting's eyes, "Am I like a white flour steamed bun?" My elder sister left with an indescribable expression. 9. I thought that someone as aloof looking as Xiaoyu would stop coming after I ignored him, but unexpectedly, he was a bit like a lingering ghost. After my elder sister was reborn, she was very busy, but she no longer focused on needlework, household management, or poetry, qin, and chess. She said that life was only a few decades, and learning these things was a waste of life. She hoarded food, helped children, and also funded a caravan to search for various rare medicinal herbs. My father had some objections at first, but after a long talk with my step-mother and elder sister, he no longer interfered. As for my elder sister's marriage, according to her, in the previous life, she had married the young master of the Wang family. That person, as she had expected, later became a high-ranking official of the third rank. The Wang family came to propose marriage just like in the previous life. I peeked at him from behind the screen. My former brother-in-law was handsome, tall, and learned, but for some reason, my elder sister didn't agree this time. My father politely declined, saying that he still wanted to keep my elder sister by his side for 2 more years. The young master of the Wang family was a bit surprised when he heard this. Before, although my elder sister had her eyes on Xiaoyu, she knew the truth of not putting all her eggs in one basket. Xiaoyu was like the moon in the sky, and it was very likely that she couldn't get him. This young master of the Wang family was my elder sister's first choice. Naturally, the young master of the Wang family didn't only have contact with my elder sister. When he left, there was some reluctance in his eyes. The next day, he invited my elder sister to meet him. My elder sister burned his letter and asked the servant to convey a message. "Just say that I'm too busy to see him. Young Master Wang is a smart person and will naturally understand my meaning." I asked my elder sister if the young master of the Wang family had done something to betray her in the previous life. Unexpectedly, my elder sister shook her head. "He didn't do anything to betray me. He gave me the status of a principal wife. He didn't take a concubine until 5 years after I failed to conceive, and he never doted on the concubine and mistreated the wife. It's just that," my elder sister curled the corners of her mouth into a smile, "it's just that later I got sick, and he didn't hesitate to send me to Qingzhou to recuperate, and he didn't delay in taking a secondary wife. He really didn't do anything to betray me. He just took every step that was most beneficial to him." Since ancient times, men have seemed to be born knowing that at what time they should make what choices that are beneficial to themselves. I didn't have as many emotions as my elder sister. I only heard the key word: she got sick. My birth mother died in childbirth, and since I was born, I was registered under my step-mother's name. It was said that my birth mother was once my father's childhood sweetheart. Some people gossiped that my step-mother would surely ruin me, but if I could lie in bed for a lifetime, it was something many people couldn't even dream of. If I were more diligent and hard-working, I would just change from being Mrs. Zhang Chen to Mrs. Li Chen or Mrs. Xia Chen, bearing fruits for others and letting others pick them. Since I was young, my elder sister had protected me. I didn't have big ambitions and was already very content. I cried loudly, burying my face in my elder sister's sleeve. My elder sister said, "What are you crying for? It's not an incurable disease. Do you not know whether I married Wei Nanting because you died early?" My elder sister didn't expect me to be so smart and was immediately speechless. In the end, she compromised and said that this life she would definitely take good care of herself and not get sick again. I blew my nose on her sleeve and looked at her accusingly. She coaxed me for a long time and finally reluctantly took me to the largest restaurant in Wangjing. After a full meal, she took me to pick jewelry. I wore a peony-shaped hairpin and then, reluctantly, put on a smile again. "Do I look good?" As soon as I turned around, I saw Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu's eyes landed on my face. Today, he was wearing a plain white long gown, with a jade crown on his head, and his jet black hair was neatly combed. He looked more refined and handsome than the previous 2 times I saw him. After a moment of daze, surprise and pride appeared in his eyes. "Chen Anju, no matter how hard you try, I won't marry you this life." Before he could finish speaking, I bumped into him and said, "You're in the way." He staggered from being hit by me but didn't get angry. He looked at me with some helplessness, as if he thought I was throwing a tantrum because I had lost face. My elder sister pulled me to her side, sneered, and glanced at Xiaoyu coldly. Young Master Xia, we have something to do. We'll take our leave first. My elder sister didn't want to pay attention to him and pulled me away, but looking at Xiaoyu, for some reason, a sudden burst of anger rose in my heart. Why could he be reborn with my elder sister? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Finally, in Xiaoyu's astonished eyes, I punched him in the face. Xiaoyu staggered and fell like a white butterfly. His hand landed on the broken teacup, and blood immediately appeared, but he seemed not to notice, just looking at me in disbelief. Chenanju, how could you hit me? What answered him was my next heavy punch. The emotions that had just been soothed by my elder sister exploded like a boiling boiler. Why, my elder sister died young. And what about him? Did he live to be 70 or 80 with the 3 children? I usually ate a lot and was also very active. I wasn't just fat for nothing. I straddled Xiaoyu and punched him with all my strength. Soon, Xiaoyu didn't have the energy to speak. The servants of the Xia family were blocked outside the crowd by my elder sister and the maidservants. After a long time, my elder sister came to pull me up. Okay, young Master Xia didn't mean it either. I stood up and left. Xiaoyu called my name with difficulty. He had a black and blue face, his hair was messy, and he looked extremely miserable, but I had to say that he had a good-looking face, and at this moment, he had a unique charm. Unfortunately, I didn't like such a skinny and dry-looking person. Chenanju, do you hate me so much because you still love me? It's just hatred born from love. I turned around and kicked him. I don't know you well. Xiaoyu blinked when he heard this, looking at me with a smile, as if he had seen through my tough talk. My elder sister sized him up and sneered. She said, Young Master Xia, have you received the letter I sent from Qingzhou? Xiaoyu was stunned for a moment and then suddenly widened his eyes. He was so intelligent that he naturally understood. It was my elder sister who was reborn, not me. Only then did he confirm that I wasn't the Mrs. Xia Chen who had spent 7 years with him, not the Chenanju who had given birth to 3 sons for him. Now we were just 2 strangers. I was only annoyed by his harassment. My elder sister and I walked a long way, and Xiaoyu was still sitting on the ground in a daze. 11 That night, I had a very strange dream. In the dream, I got married. The small sedan chair swayed all the way to the Xia family. The young master of the Xia family was as elegant as an orchid, with a bright future. All the women envied me. Even my elder sister said that I had married well. I wasn't very happy, just felt it was troublesome, but if I didn't marry, I would ruin the reputation of the Chen family, affect my elder sister's marriage, and also implicate my step-mother to be gossiped about. Forget it, then I'll marry. On the wedding night, the most handsome man in Wangjing, as rumored, stood in front of me. I hadn't looked at him carefully before. Now that I did, I could see that he was really good looking, but he was a bit too thin and too pale, like boiled chicken breast, dry and tasteless, definitely not very delicious. Xiaoyu's cold eyes glanced at me indifferently and said, This marriage wasn't my wish. In the future, I'll give you the honor of being Mrs. Xia, but don't expect anything else. Crazy, if it wasn't your wish, why didn't you make it clear to your mother? I rolled my eyes and fell asleep. Xiaoyu, who was standing by the window, was surprised for a moment but then climbed onto the bed and slept with me. However, as we slept, his hand touched my waist. You need to give birth to the Xia family's offspring as soon as possible. One moment he said he didn't like me, and the next he wanted to have a baby with me. My elder sister always said I wasn't very smart. I really wasn't, because I really couldn't understand Xiaoyu's way of thinking. Forget it, I had to have children anyway. I took the initiative and pressed Xiaoyu onto the bed. What happened later could only be described as uninteresting. His bones were poking me. He was indeed as tasteless as chicken breast. When I forced him to submit, Xiaoyu blushed, as if he wanted to say I was shameless, but on this bed, I wasn't the only one being shameless. He was angry and ignored me for a full 6 months. Fortunately, Mother Xia had good eyes. I was very fertile and got pregnant right away. Xiaoyu and I maintained a polite relationship. Although he was cold, he wouldn't make things difficult for me. I had a good life, but others didn't think so. They thought I must be very painful, because I had lost my husband's love right after getting married. The turning point in my relationship with Xiaoyu was when I happened to save him from being forced to drink alcohol in a restaurant, and he repaid me with his body. Me, just like that, I was pregnant with the second child. The difference was that this time he took extra good care of me. Really like a father to be. He was also like many fathers, having a female confidant, Shinqingji, and he would meet in front of my eyes to compose poems, drink wine, and have a good time. I didn't care. The first time I saw them, I even felt a bit embarrassed, as if I had interrupted their elegant time. I left in a hurry, but Xiaoyu seemed to have misunderstood and thought I was jealous of him. You are the mistress of the Xia family, you should be magnanimous, he said righteously. Qingji and I are innocent. You shouldn't be so disrespectful to her, he apologized to Shen Qingji on my behalf and sent her many valuable gifts. When Mother Xia found out, she called Xiaoyu over and scolded him. Turning around, Xiaoyu took this grudge out on me. He came into my room late at night and tossed me around. I was extremely puzzled, whether it was a reward or a punishment. It was always the same thing. Was this some kind of gold inlaid wolf tooth club? Time passed like this. Xiaoyu was clingy, annoying, and had a sensitive temper. He would turn cold at every turn. The 3 children were just like him. They knew their father was powerful and competed to imitate him and win his favor. Sometimes I wanted to say something, but I was always interrupted by Xiaoyu and Mother Xia. Forget it. Anyway, they all had the surname Xia. Without me, there were plenty of people to teach them. I thought this kind of life would last until I died, but I didn't expect that as Shinqingji and Xiaoyu got closer and closer, everything changed. Xiaoyu finally seemed to have made up his mind to divorce me, the wife he didn't like from the beginning. That was really great. It was like I had been in prison for 30 years and was suddenly released. The day I left, I ate 30 marinated pig's trotters. The people at the next table were dumbfounded. At this time, a person came over and said with a smile, "Does the girl still remember me? That year, when I was on my way to the capital to take the imperial examination, I almost starved to death. You gave me a marinated pig's trotter. I slept until the sun was high in the sky. After waking up, I carefully recalled the plot in the dream. Xiaoyu was really annoying. Wei Nanting was really delicious. 12. Wei Nanting was very competitive. He passed the imperial examination as the top martial arts scholar 2 years earlier. The day he became the top martial arts scholar, he managed to avoid the chaotic situation of being chased by families trying to marry him off right after the results were announced and came to my house. My father had already made preparations. He glanced at me behind the screen and said, "This matter also depends on the will of my Anju." I shyly nodded vigorously at my father. My elder sister pulled me out from behind the screen. When Wei Nanting saw me, his face also turned red. One of us was dark-skinned and red-faced, and the other was fair-skinned and red-faced. We were quite a match. I saw Wei Nanting off. When we were about to part, I secretly pulled his hand. It was so hot, like a freshly cooked bear's paw. I couldn't help it and secretly touched his butt. It was so perky, perkier than a chicken's butt. Before I could put away the lewd smile on my face, I met someone's eyes. Xiaoyu stared at me with wide eyes. He seemed to have run over. His jade crown was crooked, his hair was disheveled, and he was panting. He glared angrily and demanded, "Chenanju, what are you doing?" Before I could speak, Wei Nanting spoke first. "It's not you she's touching, mind your own business." As he spoke, he put my hand, which I had retracted guiltily, back on his butt. How presumptuous. My face turned bright red. Xiaoyu's lips trembled, and he seemed on the verge of collapse. "Chenanju, have you really changed your heart? How could you treat me like this?" I didn't pay attention to Xiaoyu. After saying goodbye to Wei Nanting, I closed the door in front of Xiaoyu's face, shutting out his devastated face. That night, Xiaoyu actually climbed over the wall and came in. The dignified young master of the Xia family, a person who always valued his appearance the most, actually climbed over the wall. The person in the moonlight stared at me intently. The bright moon was high in the sky, and the night breeze was cool. Xiaoyu said, "I should have realized it earlier. Chenanju, you don't remember me, so you're so heartless as to not come to see me for so long. You don't remember me, so you're willing to use another man to anger me and willing to be so cruel to me." I listened, dumbfounded, and forgot to chew on the chicken feet. There was still a marinated pig's trotter hidden in my quilt. When I heard the footsteps earlier, I thought it was my elder sister coming to catch me for a midnight snack. Xiaoyu continued, "It's good this way. If you had the memories of the previous life, you would surely resent me. It's better to start over. Now, it's not too late. In this life, we can start anew. I can marry you again. This time, we won't divorce." I was stunned and said, but I'm not planning to marry you." Xiaoyu froze in place. I said sincerely, "I really don't like you." 13. Xiaoyu's eyes suddenly lost their luster. His thin lips were tightly pursed, and his face turned a bit pale. He took a few steps forward, grabbed my wrist, and shook his head. I don't believe it. In the previous life, you loved me deeply, we treated each other with respect and had 3 children. I scratched my head and asked. Then why did we get divorced in the end? Xiaoyu's voice became hoarse, and regret flashed in his eyes. I was too naive. I thought a wife should be erudite and talented so that we could have a harmonious relationship, but I didn't know that a woman's lack of talent is a virtue, and a woman who cooks for her husband and stays by his side is the one who really knows how to live a life. I didn't really stay by your side much. It was you who always came to find me, but I didn't have the nerve to say this. I was afraid he would cry on the spot. Xiaoyu frowned and asked, did you hear something about me from your elder sister? I shook my head. I didn't want to talk to him anymore and directly shouted loudly, someone, catch the rogue. Xiaoyu's eyes widened in an instant. The servants rushed over when they heard the sound. How could the pampered young master of the Xia family outrun a group of servants in the end? Xiaoyu was embarrassed, pressed to the ground. The Xia family sent many gifts to apologize. They all ended up in my elder sister's hands. She said she would keep them for me first, if it became my dowry. After I got married, Wei Nanting would also have a share. If he wasn't a good person, it would be a loss. I listened, confused, and habitually nodded obediently. My elder sister sighed and said, with your temperament, you really should be paired with someone who has more thoughts. Except for Xiaoyu, I said. Wei Nanting doesn't have many thoughts either. My elder sister smiled and didn't refute. I didn't see Xiaoyu again later. I heard that he was punished by Mother Xia to be confined at home and reflect. Unexpectedly, Shen Qingji suddenly came to look for me. She was still as delicate and tenacious as before. Her oval face was exactly 2 sizes smaller than mine. Miss Chen, the second, I came to find you just to say a few words to you. I agreed. My elder sister only said not to pay attention to Xiaoyu, but she didn't say not to pay attention to Shen Qingji. She was satisfied and took me to a tea house. When I was cracking melon seeds, she took a sip of tea. When I was eating mung bean cakes, she took a sip of tea. When I was eating grapes, she took a sip of tea. Sure enough, some thin people were thin for a reason. Miss Chen, the second, you're actually a smart person. You know that cousin is just interested in you for a while. If you agree to him, he'll soon get tired of you and then realize that you're not the one he really wants. What he wants is still a woman who can compose poems with him and share common interests. I looked at her in shock. She actually knew all this. She really was a talented woman. Perhaps my amazement was too obvious, and Shen Qingji's momentum weakened a lot. Ahem, I didn't come to find you for any other reason. I just want you to see this clearly and not fall head over heels for him, otherwise, it will be a loss if you get divorced a few years later. I thought for a while and said, then do you want to marry Xiaoyu? My straightforward words made Shen Qingji freeze for a moment. You're so straightforward. I just want to remind you, I have no other intentions. I chewed on the pastry and asked in confusion, and, a cousin has no right to meddle in a cousin-in-law's marriage, right? Or, are you the one the Xia family has secretly chosen? She quickly interrupted me. Don't talk nonsense. I'm innocent with cousin. I'm just here to remind you out of kindness. Ed. I racked my brains to recall the ending of Shen Qingji in the previous life in my dream, but in the end, I got nothing. I went to Qingzhou with Wei Nanting and settled down in the place where my elder sister had once lived. Many years later, I received a letter from the capital. The handwriting was Xiaoyu's, but the paper was yellowed, as if it had been written a long time ago. As for the content of the letter, it roughly said, several times during the night rain, he thought of me and wanted to come and see how I was doing, but he never had the time. There were water bandits in the south, and he had to go and suppress them first. If I was still there, I would surely bid him farewell with deep affection and prepare enough food for him. Of course, his words were a bit too affectionate. Wei Nanting was a bit jealous after reading it and made me work hard all night. Along with the letter came a message from Mother Xia. She said this was what Xiaoyu wanted to give me but never had the chance to send. I suddenly realized that Xiaoyu might have been dead at that time. I slapped my head and suddenly understood. So, only those who died early could be reborn. Then Shen Qingji should have married someone else. Shen Qingji left with a black face. After leaving the private room of the tea house, we met again at the entrance of the toilet. Her face turned red, and she looked a bit awkward. I burped loudly. 14, ending. The day I got married to Wei Nanting, my elder sister gave me 18 handsome servants. Wei Nanting married into my family, so, life didn't change much after marriage. I just ate more. After all, I had more physical exertion, but unexpectedly, Wei Nanting didn't want me to have children. He said my birth mother died in childbirth when she had me, and he was worried. I patted my chest and told him that I was probably fertile. He gritted his teeth and asked me how I was so sure. I said I had 3 children in my dream, but quality wasn't guaranteed. Wei Nanting asked me who I had the children with. I immediately shut up, but he actually saw something. He might be a bit smarter than I thought. This guess was further confirmed in the following years. His official position got higher and higher, much more powerful than in the previous life. Some people said that since he was already a great general, why was he still a son-in-law who married into the wife's family? He should immediately change back to his original surname and re-establish his family. That night, Wei Nanting stood by the bedside of the person who was gossiping, holding a big knife. If you make my wife misunderstand me, you'll have to pay with your head. Then no one dared to say anything anymore. At that time, my elder sister had become a famous businesswoman. She traveled far and wide and lived the life she wanted. Her body, which had been damaged by childbirth in the previous life, was extremely healthy this life. As for Xiaoyu, he volunteered to go to Qingzhou. Before he left, he came to look for me. The rain was pleasant to hear. He stood under the eaves not far away and watched me for a long time. He said that in his previous life, he died 3 years after our divorce. He took on the task of suppressing the water bandits. Those water bandits were about to approach Qingzhou. He went without hesitation and then died by the river outside Qingzhou city. He didn't see me one last time. Actually, I already knew this. In fact, Mother Xia had come to look for me. Her son suddenly changed and always came to look for me. Naturally, she noticed something strange. She accepted the fact of rebirth and quickly found out what had happened to Xiaoyu. She said that her son was arrogant and it was only natural for him to stumble in love, but she never expected him to fall so miserably. I didn't think it was miserable. There were many people worse off than him. He just couldn't accept that I left so freely. The clouds rolled and the clouds scattered. Wei Nanting and I spent the spring and autumn together. We never heard from Xiaoyu again.